Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel and welcome to my Omnibus series. I've got so many of these omnibuses that are going to come out so that you'll be able to listen to an hour's worth of stories, which I know you're going to love. You know, the thing is that telling stories is such a fine art, and it's something that was practiced hundreds of years ago when people didn't have the technology that we have today. And everyone would gather around the fire and listen to a wonderful story. And also, what is so wonderful about a story is that personally, I think it is the best way to go to sleep. Every night when I go to bed, I always listen to stories. And that's something that parents used to do with their children. It's something that they still do with their children. There's nothing better than a good story. And so I hope you're going to enjoy this series. And before we start, I just want to say, do subscribe to my channel because you don't want to miss out on anything. Because I'm in for the long haul and I want to make sure that you get the most stunning stories to go to bed with at night or to listen to when you want to be one of those people sitting beside the fire and listening. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and let's get started. I hope you're going to enjoy the omnibus.
Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, Maxwell Capelli was manning his mother's cake stand at the farmer's market, where her delicious selection of baked goods was on display, ranging from lemon chiffon cake to Boston cream pie. For on a Friday morning, his mother would turn the family kitchen into a bakery, so that the house smelt richly of melted butter and caramelized sugar. And then on Saturday mornings very early, Maxwell and his mother would sell his mother's cakes at the market. And they didn't last for very long, as with word of mouth, news had spread like wildfire that Michelle Capelli made the most fantastic cakes, and people weren't wrong about that, as she was without question a phenomenal baker, whose recipes were always unique, for she could turn an ordinary sponge cake into something exceedingly special. It would seem her stand at the farmer's market was a good income earner, even though Michelle Capelli did not actually need the money. But she was an industrious woman who liked to keep as busy as possible. And besides anything else, it didn't hurt to earn a bit of extra money on the side, to put towards a holiday the family could enjoy, perhaps. On that Saturday morning, business had been booming at the farmer's market. People came and went in the usual way. Many shoppers were looking for some great deals, and were eagerly buying cakes and cookies from Mrs. Capelli's stand. And it wouldn't be long before the last cakes grew legs when a customer came to claim them all. And then Michelle Capelli and her son Maxwell would leave the market, their pockets heavy with change, feeling rather good about their day's accomplishments. The energy that morning after Maxwell and his mother had set up their stand in their usual spot was energetic. The market was a bustle of lively, very interested activity. Many locals invariably bumped into each other, as they knew each other well, and would often stand around in circles having long chats, while happily slurping away at iced coffees and lattes. Some people would buy snacks, from samosas to egg rolls and chicken kebabs on sticks, which they would eat on the go, as they walked around the farmer's market, their keen, curious eyes feasting on all the interesting displays that were visually spectacular to behold. There was a vast selection of fine American cheeses, garden vegetables and fruits, partisan breads, baked goods, nuts and dried fruits, and the list goes on and on. The market was like those open markets you find all over the world, from places like Italy to Morocco, Thailand and India. It offered a vast, very selective range of goods, from wild honeys to homemade jams and pickles, leather handbags, woolen sweaters, cosmetics, table mats and linens, artists' drawings, paintings, old books, antiques, and the choices seem to be like a bottomless pit that goes on for ever and ever, without an end in sight. Put it this way, anything you could think of to buy would possibly have been available at the farmer's market. Within reason, of course. Maxwell Capelli was still at school. He was 15 years old. So being behind his mother's cake stand at the farmer's market was something he thoroughly enjoyed doing. As much like his mother, he appeared to be hardwired to keep himself busy, and the farmers' market was a cool place to hang out. He met so many interesting people from all walks of life there, and even from other parts of the globe, and would happily engage with many of them in a light-hearted, cheerful banter. Of course, he would have much preferred to be working behind a stand that sold model aircraft or cars, but you couldn't have everything, could you? But Maxwell liked counting the money he and his mother made, and he'd helped her every Saturday, and doing so benefited him greatly because he received half of the earnings from her, which he intended to put towards buying his first car. The only drawback about working at the farmers' market was that Maxwell and his mother, Michelle Capelli, would have to rise from their beds excruciatingly early in the morning, when it was far from pleasant, just to get his mother's large SUV packed with all the cakes and cookies she had cooked the previous day. It would be dark and unforgiving outside when they rose from their beds. If the weather was chilly out of doors, it was certainly a laborious struggle for Maxwell to get out of bed without a little bit of encouragement from his mother, because like any typical teenager, if he could sleep in, he surely would have done so. But he knew this job was worth his while, and he reminded himself that the more he helped his mother out at the farmers' market, the sooner the money he made would pile up, and before long he might have enough money to put towards buying his first car. For certainly over the years he'd been saving his money long and hard in an interest-bearing account, and he prided himself in doing all kinds of odd jobs in the neighborhood for various people in order to earn some much-needed surplus cash, and there was no job that Maxwell would turn his nose up to, for he was not afraid of a little hard work. Many of the locals offered him work from mowing their lawns or painting fences and windows. Maxwell's father was reasonably well off, not only because of his job in the city, that paid significantly well, but because his own grandparents had left him a substantial amount of money in their will. Maxwell had never ever been spoilt by his parents, as all the money he had acquired in the bank came from his own hard work and efforts, and certainly made him feel rather accomplished. He was glad he wasn't getting handouts from his parents like some of the boys at school so obviously did. There was something so self-satisfying and rewarding about making your own money independently. When Maxwell was woken up in the early hours of the morning to go to the farmer's market by his mother, who would give him a vigorous shake and tell him to "Wakey wake, rise and shine," Maxwell would pop out of bed as quickly as he could, so he wasn't tempted to remain under the sheets and go back to sleep, which would have been very easy for him to do. When he woke up in the morning, he'd visualize the car he intended to buy, and that was enough for him to feel assured that there was some worthwhile purpose in this madness of getting up at this ungodly hour, when even the light of the early morning refused to make its appearance, and the sleeping neighborhood where they lived was cast under a dark veil, and the only activity you might see as the locals slept was a couple of raccoons trying to raid a nearby dustbin that had fallen on its side. Michelle Capelli would make both of them steaming hot cups of chocolate, along with toasted cheese and bacon sandwiches, and then they'd both pack her oversized SUV with all the baked goods, and finally drive down the lonely streets together, where not a soul could be seen. And in the darkness, they'd make their way to the farmer's market. Boogle, their Italian greyhound, would make such a dreadful commotion when they got out of their beds to prep for the day ahead. Indeed, he'd bark so very loudly that poor Mr. Capelli would wake up looking both disgruntled and bad-tempered. He hated his sleep being so rudely disturbed, and loathed and abhorred the fact that his wife Michelle insisted on having a stand at the farmer's market where she could sell her cakes and cookies. He didn't know why his wife couldn't be happy just staying at home like any regular housewife would. Michelle did not need to work, for they had a very good standard of living, but she appeared to be one of those infuriating individuals that always involved herself in so many extracurricular activities. She'd work at the school tuck shop selling hamburgers and hot dogs to the kids. She'd help the ladies prepare coffee for all the parishioners to enjoy after a church service. She went to yoga twice a week. Every Thursday she went swimming at an indoor swimming pool in town, where she would learn to improve her swimming style. She had taken on Irish dancing lessons. She always seemed to be on the go, doing this or doing that. She'd watch Maxwell's sports games at school, and she was always his greatest cheerleader. She'd occasionally meet up with girlfriends for coffee in town. Michelle Capelli was well liked. She had many friends. She was very social and had an effervescent personality which made people instinctively warm to her. Julius Capelli groaned on this morning as he entered the kitchen, looking even more dishevelled than usual. He was wearing his tartan pyjamas, along with a notable, rather disenchanted frown on his face. His short brown hair was standing up on end like Sonic the Hedgehog, and his chin was covered in some overnight stubble. He stared at his wife Michelle through dispirited green eyes that did not see any humour on this cruel, chilly morning. "Why do you have to do this, Michelle?" "Do what, Julius?" Michelle Capelli asked, looking as innocent as a day-old lamb, even though she absolutely knew why Julius was not in the best of moods, as every Saturday morning Boogle's incessant barking would wake him up prematurely, and Julius would always complain bitterly about having his sleep so rudely and inconsiderately disturbed. "What do you think I mean, love? Don't you play the innocent with me. You know exactly what I'm getting at. I'm exceedingly aggrieved with both you and Maxwell, always insisting upon ridiculously getting up at this insane hour of the morning to go to the farmer's market in order to sell your cakes. If you must know, I'm getting extremely tired of all this sleep deprivation, and Boogle's barking isn't making things any better for me. I'm very sorry you were woken up prematurely, Julius. Go back to bed, why don't you? Just ignore us. We'll try to be as quiet as we possibly can." "I can't very well go back to bed. Not when I'm wide awake. The commotion you're making is just unbelievable. How is a man supposed to sleep through all this? Why do you have to work at the farmer's market anyway? We don't need the money." "Because I enjoy the job," said Michelle. "I'm a very good cook, and I like making cakes and cookies and selling them. Besides, it's a great income earner, is it not? And Maxwell is also industriously making good money. And before long he'll have enough money to buy his own car. And that's got to be a positive." "We don't need the money. How many times do I have to tell you that, love? I make more than enough money to support our family. And I'm sorry, but selling a few cakes at the farmer's market isn't life-changing on the financial front. Investing is so much better than that. Why do we have to make our lives so much more complicated by doing so many more things? Isn't life stressful enough already, without adding a whole wretched laundry list of things to do? I honestly don't understand you at times. I mean, if we were hard up, well, it would be all hands on deck, would it not? And I would understand your need to work hard. But when we don't have that kind of need, why do you bother? I can't imagine any of those high-tech billionaires wasting a Saturday morning selling some cakes at a farmer's market." "Well, I may remind you, Julius, we're not billionaires. And even if we were, I'd still sell cakes at the farmer's market. Money isn't everything, you know. I sincerely hope, if I was a billionaire myself, I just wouldn't sit on my backside doing nothing all day, and just being waited on by staff. That would be pitiful, and life would be dreary and boring, if you ask me." "So even if you were a billionaire with more money than sense, you'd still insist on working at this outrageous hour? Are you insane?" "Absolutely I would. There's nothing more satisfactory in this life than some good hard work." "What is wrong with you, love? Don't you already do far too much already, helping out at the school tuck shop, and God knows what else? These days, Fridays are chaotic when I come home from work. You spend the entire day baking in the kitchen, and when I return home I find piles of cake boxes spread all over the countertops, and then most of Saturday is robbed, as you spend all the morning at the farmer's market. Haven't you heard the saying, less is more? The trouble with you, love, is you always seem to have ants in your pants. You're always on the move. I barely get to see you these days, especially over the weekends, and I'm beginning to resent your absence. It would be nice to do things as a family for a change, But no, you insist on swanning off to do your little things, don't you? Oh, goodness gracious me. Don't overreact, Julius. How many times have we gone over this together? Even if we don't need the money, I like to be an independent, resourceful woman and do something constructive with my life. And it's a great deal of fun for me baking all these cakes and selling them at the farmer's market. People appreciate my work. Me and Waxwell, well, we meet so many interesting people from all walks of life. People we'd never ever get to meet if we didn't work at the farmer's market. I've made some lovely friends over the years. Besides anything else, it's a cool place to hang out. And I get so much positive feedback from the cakes I make. It's very rewarding for me. It makes me feel accomplished, as if I'm doing something worthwhile with my life that people actually appreciate. I've learned that giving is so much better than receiving. But I wouldn't expect a tech billionaire to appreciate that. And even though you're not a billionaire, you don't understand my reasoning on this. Of course I don't understand your reasoning on this, because you make no sense at all, love. If you want the truth, I think it would be a lot more constructive of you if you slept in on a Saturday morning with me, and it would be very pleasant for me. It would certainly make a change from being woken up at this god-awful, senseless hour of the morning, when it's still dark outside. And it doesn't help hearing Boogle yapping away, as if we've just had a house invasion. And then there you are in the kitchen with Maxwell, clattering around the place, and getting the SUV packed up with all those cakes of yours. I wake up to smell coffee and sizzling bacon on the go. And it all smells delicious. But I don't want to be smelling that stuff in the early hours of the morning, before the dawn has even broken. It's like the kitchen has turned into a busy bus station, and I'm always cruelly flung out of my sleep, without any apology from you. And it's usually in the middle of a really good dream of mine. There's nothing worse than being disturbed from a good sleep, let me tell you. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, said Michelle Capelli apologetically. Of course I appreciate that, I really do, sweetheart. And for the record, I'm so very sorry, said Michelle Capelli apologetically. Me and Maxwell don't intend to wake you up. We do try our hardest to be quiet. But getting those cakes piled up in the SUV is a noisy business. And of course it doesn't help that Boogle's bark, well, it's so loud, isn't it? He'd wake the living dead if given half the chance. I do try to be quiet, though, I promise. Quiet? Snorted Julius Capelli. I don't think you know the meaning of the word, love. I work damn hard at the office during the week, and I look very forward to the weekends, and sleeping in is something I've always appreciated. But not any more. Not since you've got this wild, fanciful idea of yours to sell cakes at the farmer's market. And now you've roped in Maxwell to help you as well, by bribing him, because he wants to get a car. So that I'm pretty much left alone on my own devices on a Saturday morning, pottering around the house like a lonely old man. It's not fair, you know. Oh, there you go again. I'm sure there are lots of things you can do while I'm away, at the farmer's market. It wouldn't do you any harm, Julius, to take Boogle for a walk around the neighbourhood. He could easily burn off some of his excessive energy. You could relax on the patio, read a book perhaps, take pottery classes on a Saturday morning. Mr. Robbins from number 32 has been taking pottery classes and loves it. He's become quite a dab hand at the wheel, I'll have you know. And I've seen his work. It's really lovely. You could do something like that. It gives your life a meaning and a purpose. Bully for Mr. Robbins. That's what I say, said Julius sarcastically. I'm happy for him if he derives pleasure from a wheel and a ball of clay, but I'm afraid I'm not so easily pleased. I certainly don't want to be like you and get involved in a whole host of extracurricular activities. Don't you get it, love? I'm busy enough during the week. I have my hands full. I need to relax. I certainly don't want to have other things that I need to do on my hands. If I was retired, of course, it might be a completely different story. But when I'm home for the weekend, I want to relax. What about that is so hard for you to understand? Don't you get it, Michelle? I miss you and Maxwell when you're not around. I miss the family time we spend together. Why on earth do you have to rope Maxwell into this madness as well? It doesn't make any sense to me. Nothing makes any sense to you, love. Look at the way you talk. It's so negative. If you must know, I think it's good Maxwell helps me out selling cakes. You should be encouraging our 15-year-old to be an entrepreneur, to learn about dealing with money and meeting all kinds of people. These are very good life lessons to learn, Julius, and not something to be sneezed at. Some teenagers Maxwell's age get allowances from their parents, but we've never ever done that to Maxwell. We refused to spoil him. We wanted him to become independent and earn his own money. And I, for one, could not be more proud of his accomplishments. Teenagers should be actively encouraged to become more self-sufficient and independent. And believe it or not, Maxwell thoroughly enjoys spending time at the farmer's market. And I honestly don't understand why you don't appreciate that. I think the whole experience is remarkably good for him. And he's very good at socializing with other people. You should see him. He's incredible. It really is cool, Dad, said Maxwell. I mean, I hate getting out of bed early. Let's not kid. And it's horrible when it's cold outside. But once me and Mum have packed the car and we've got to the market, the morning goes very quickly. And I make some good money. And as Mum says, we meet some amazing people. You should check it out for yourself, Dad. Come around to the market this morning. It's a blast, I promise you. And some of the storeholders are very good people. Son, I can see you're enthusiastic, much like your mother. You are two birds of a feather. I suppose I should be grateful that you're industrious like you are, and not a layabout, lazy man. Young man, shall I say? But I have no intention visiting you at the market, I'm sorry. I want to make the most of relaxing over the weekend. But I think I will take Boogle for a walk. He could certainly do with burning off some of that excess energy you speak of. You do that, love. It's a great idea, said Michelle Capelli. Besides anything else, Boogle would almost certainly appreciate the exercise. And I think you could do with some as well. It will certainly help you to relax and let off some steam. And you know what? So many locals walk their dogs around the neighbourhood. So you could have some nice chats. And I'm sure you'll have an incredibly pleasant morning. Julius grumbled under his breath. That bacon is making me extremely hungry, he admitted, as he watched his wife tossing it around in the pan. He found his stomach was grumbling, and he was beginning to drool like a dog. Is there any of that bacon going spare, love? I'm up and about now. You made sure of that. So I might as well have a bite to eat before I return to bed, with only Boogle for company. But of course you can have some bacon. I always make extra anyway, said Michelle Capelli, trotting over from the range and placing a couple of bacon slices and cheese into some toasted bread. She cut the bread into halves and brought them over to her husband and poured him a mug of hot chocolate, which seemed to appease him a little, although he did still look rather bad-tempered and cantankerous. There was no doubt Michelle's husband hated being disturbed in the early hours of the morning like this. She did feel bad about it, of course, that they always seemed to manage to wake him up, but it wasn't exactly her fault that Boogle seemed to always sound the alarm. Boogle was, in fact, Julius's dog, as he'd grown up with greyhounds all his life and was devoted to them as a boy, so he had a soft spot for them, and Boogle seemed to know that Julius had chosen him, because when Julius was around, he stuck to his owner like superglue. After the family ate their sandwiches in silence around the kitchen table, chugging back warm mugs of chocolate, Maxwell and his mother packed the SUV, bidding Julius farewell. He was still sitting at the kitchen table, drinking another cup of hot chocolate, while finishing the other half of his wife's leftover sandwich, which she hadn't finished eating. I think we'll go now, said Michelle Capelli, reaching out to give her husband a kiss. We'll be off. How long are you going to be, love? asked Julius rather abruptly. I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise you as soon as we've sold the last cake, we'll be back. I miss you already, love. Me too. I'm already missing you. Michelle Capelli felt bad leaving her husband at home on his own, as she did every Saturday morning, but at least he had Boogle for company, and that dog was a real character, even though he had an infuriating bark on him that could drive you completely bonkers. She knew she'd be back home by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but it certainly didn't help that Julius hated her doing this job, and yes, she felt guilty about it, because she didn't really need the job. But it was so rewarding and satisfying for her to sell her cakes to appreciative strangers, along with the regulars who bought her cakes religiously every weekend. Michelle Capelli loved the social interaction she had with people, and found the experience to be genuinely enjoyable. She really couldn't think of anything worse than sleeping in on a Saturday morning, because she was a doer, but she'd never let her husband fully understand that. Besides anything else, she did genuinely believe she was teaching Maxwell some invaluable life lessons about being an entrepreneur, lessons he'd never learn at school. He was learning to be self-sufficient without relying on handouts from his parents. Many teenagers these days, pinned to their cell phones, did not learn to connect socially with other people, as all their communication was done via social media, and in many cases their social skills were sorely lacking. So bringing Maxwell to the farmers' market, where he was having one-on-one contact with regular folk and learning to interact with them, was a very good learning experience for him. Maxwell was a lot like her, as he was also a doer and thoroughly enjoyed keeping himself constructively busy. In the school holidays, Maxwell would earn extra money, doing as many jobs as possible for people around the neighborhood. He would paint windows and doors, mow lawns and walk dogs, and much like his mother, he enjoyed the exhilaration of keeping himself busy. Maxwell had always been quite shy and demure by nature, but luckily with all the social interaction his mother had actively encouraged over the years, he had come out of his shell considerably, and was now extremely popular at school, and very well liked by almost everyone he met, for he had a genuinely warm heart. The SUV his mother was driving that morning swept through the lonely streets of their neighborhood, basked under the dark shadows of a morning that was struggling to be birthed, for the moon was still discernible in the sky. Maxwell had his nose pinned to the glass pane of the passenger side seat. There was something so comforting about driving through the dark streets, without seeing a single soul in sight, but he knew it wouldn't be long before the sun robustly broke through the grey fog, with a gentle trickle of light that would get bolder and bolder and brighter as the morning began to progress. By the time they arrived at the market, the sky was beginning to get light. Michelle Capelli parked her SUV in the parking lot, in its regular spot. They began to spend the next hour or so setting up their stand, and then taking regular trips to the SUV to bring out the cakes stored in the back of the car. For the first hour or so, the market had been extremely quiet. Storeholders huddled together, talking together in groups, drinking hot cups of coffee. There was a chill in the air. From 8:30 onwards, the sun was now dominating a cloudless blue sky. The weather had become pleasantly warm, so Maxwell removed the sweater he'd been wearing, feeling happy that it was a warm day. He could see people walking over to various stands, and it wasn't long before people were queuing at his mother's stand to buy her cakes. The first customer of the day was an old woman called Mrs. Hornbury, who usually always arrived first at their cake stand, before anybody else did. The woman was in her 80s, wore a shawl around her grey hair, and had kind brown button-like eyes. "You're our first customer today, Mrs. Hornbury," Maxwell teased. "But of course I'm the first. I wouldn't have it any other way," said Mrs. Hornbury, with a twinkle in her eyes. "My old father always used to have a saying. He'd say the early bird catches the worm. And I've followed that saying all my life because you know what? It's true. I get up at the crack of dawn and have done so since I was a wee little thing, and it's served me well, because you know what? I always end up getting the first choices in everything. Honestly, it really is worth your while getting up early. That's what I find." "So what is it going to be today, Mrs. Hornby?" asked Maxwell. "Well, I'm having 2 of my girlfriends around for tea this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to catch up with them. We haven't been in contact for quite a while, actually. So I want to get them something special. They're both very different. So the question is, what do I get? What is a safe bet? Your mother makes many delicious cakes. Sometimes it's impossible for me to choose." "Well, I would say, Mrs. Hornby, that my mother's caramel cheesecake, everybody likes that. It's extremely popular. I haven't met anyone who doesn't like it. And then her apple crumb cake, well, that is a classic. People love that, and it's a very safe option, especially for entertaining your guests." "You know, you're absolutely right," said Mrs. Hornby. "I think apples are always safe. I mean, who on this earth doesn't love an apple pie? And your mother's apple crumb cake is to die for. Far better than any other pie I've ever eaten. And I can certainly serve it with whipped cream, which would go down like a treat. Yes, I think I'll take the apple crumb. Last week I brought your mother's pecan nut pie, I have to tell you. And I hate to admit this to you because I don't want to sound greedy. But in 2 days it was eaten. It was so good. I caught my husband sneaking into the kitchen at the dead of night in order to have another slice of pecan nut pie. That was how delicious it was. I would have actually bought another pecan nut pie today. But I worry that my husband will finish it before my girlfriends actually arrive for tea. So it's dangerous buying that pecan nut pie. My husband can't help himself in that regard. He's got a dreadful sweet tooth, you see. Personally, I've never been much of a baker, so your mother and her cake stand has been my saving grace. She's my best-kept secret, you know," said Mrs. Hornby, tapping her nose. "I hope you don't think I'm rude asking you this, Mrs. Hornby, but is your husband by any chance a big man? I'm just curious, because it sounds like he puts away a lot of food and has a very sweet tooth." "Oh, he's a bottomless pit, let me tell you, Maxwell," said Mrs. Hornby, chuckling. "My Angus could quite literally eat the ears of an elephant without any trouble at all. He has a humongous appetite on him. I was told when people got older their appetites were supposed to diminish. Not so with my husband. His appetite is extremely healthy. Do you know he still wears the same size pants he did when he was at senior high, and even junior high, I believe. He's a slim man, and he looks so good for his age. It's infuriating seeing him eat so many calories with nothing to show for it. If I ate what my husband did, Maxwell, let me tell you, I would be riding around the farmer's market in a scooter. I'd be that big." After Mrs. Hornby had come to the stand, it was almost as if the floodgates had suddenly opened, as more and more people were queuing up to buy cakes. At one point during the morning, Michelle Capelli looked at her son and said, "Maxwell, can I ask you a big favour? You don't mind manning the stand for a while, do you? I need to do something." "No, of course not, Mum. Where are you going?" "Well, I have my eye on some black and white prints that I think would look marvellously good in the entrance hall. There's a stand that is selling the most gorgeous prints I happened to notice a little earlier on. I've never seen the stand here before, but I noticed a couple of prints I really believe will look good. So I've decided to buy them." "Good for you, Mum. Take as long as you like. I can manage here fine. Besides anything, you deserve to treat yourself." "Thank you, son. I appreciate that. I'll try not to take too long." Maxwell sold a couple more cakes to rather appreciative customers, and that was when he saw a young man, who could potentially have been a couple of years older than he was, purposely striding over to his stand. The young man was handsome, quite tall and slender, with brown short hair. He was wearing a white cotton shirt that was open at the neck, and that was when Maxwell noticed he was wearing the coolest necklace he'd ever seen. Now, Maxwell was not interested in jewelry at all, but this necklace was completely different to anything he'd ever seen before, and was the exception to that rule. It was made up of a leather thong with an eagle's feather and an unusual pendant attached to it. The pendant glittered with fragments of gold and a turquoise blue stone. Maxwell rather liked gemstones, but he'd never seen anything like this before. "How can I help you?" he asked the young man. "I'm after your carrot cake. Please tell me you have one on sale today." "But of course we do," said Maxwell. "Actually, you're in luck, because we only have one carrot cake left. They're extremely popular with our customers, you see." The young man looked heartily relieved. "Thank goodness. I had this horrible feeling I was going to get here and the carrot cake would have been sold. I've been running around all day like a headless chicken, trying to find a present for my mother. Why are women so hard to buy presents for? It's her birthday tomorrow, you see. I knew I needed to get her carrot cake because she loves your mother's carrot cake. Let's just say when she bought a carrot cake from your stand about 3 weeks ago, she hasn't stopped talking about it. She swears that the carrot cake is the best she's ever tasted. I'm glad to say I managed to find her a present at that stand over there," he said, pointing to a stand not far from the cake stand, where they appeared to be selling costume jewellery. And so Maxwell surmised that the little bag that he was carrying in his hands probably contained a pretty bracelet that he'd purchased for his mother. "Now that I've got her present, I need some birthday cake for her. So I want to get that carrot cake." We have a young man who is selling his mother's cakes at the farmer's market, and he has just been approached by a young man who is wanting to buy a carrot cake for his mother's birthday. And the one thing that Maxwell has noticed about this young man is around his neck he's wearing this most incredibly unusual piece of jewellery, a leather thong with an eagle's feather attached to it, an unusual gemstone which is of a turquoise colour with golden fragments in it, and he's never seen anything like that in his life, and he's never been one for men's jewellery or anything like that, but this piece of jewellery has stolen his awareness and he really likes it. So we're going to find out where the story is taking us, but I've got a feeling that that's a piece of Bigfoot jewellery. So let's continue with part 2 of our story tonight. Maxwell handed over the carrot cake to the customer, who appeared to be feeling around in his back pockets for his wallet. "That necklace of yours," said Maxwell. "I've never seen anything like it. It's really cool, very macho looking. I really do like the leather thong and the eagle's feather. And I've never seen a gemstone quite like that. The turquoise with the gold glitter in it. It's very unusual." "Thanks," said the young man, who was looking extremely distracted, as he patted his back pockets, looking slightly alarmed. "My wallet," he said. "I can't find my wallet. Where on earth is it? I paid for a necklace over at that stand from my mother, and then I put my wallet in my back pocket. I distinctly remember doing it. But it's gone." His face suddenly paled. Maxwell looked at the young man sympathetically. "I don't know how to tell you this. There's been a lot of pickpocketing at this farmer's market. People like you claim that their wallets just magically disappear. I don't know if you've noticed the sign up, but it's warning people to keep close tabs on their wallets and purses because of pickpocketers. We never had a problem before until recently." "You're kidding, right? Pickpocketers at a farmer's market? That's insane," said the young man, looking somewhat bemused and rather taken aback by this revelation. "I'm afraid so," said Maxwell. "I'm awfully sorry about your missing wallet. It's not good when things like that disappear. It's a bummer. The police, I'm afraid, haven't been able to catch the culprits concerned. They believe it's a man and a woman working together, but they're always in disguise, so they can't be easily recognized. After you brought the necklace, were you approached by a woman, by any chance?" "Yes, as it happens, a woman did stop me. She was telling me about one of the stands at the market that I should visit. I was polite to her, and while I was talking to her, someone bumped into me from behind and apologized profusely. That must have been when they slipped their hands into my back pocket, and very clandestinely stole my wallet. I'm such an idiot. I should have realized what was going on." "Don't blame yourself," said Maxwell. "That's how they cunningly work together. They're a very shrewd team. One of the perpetrators distracts you while the other one sneakily grabs your purse or wallet. And if yours was in the back pocket, I'm afraid to say, It made for easy pickings. What the hell am I going to do? It's so typical when something like this happens at the most inconvenient of times. I need to get this carrot cake for my mother. She really wants it for her birthday, and I promised I'd get it for her. But I have no money, and I have a guitar lesson in half an hour. What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm willing to barter for the cake, said Maxwell. Barter? What's that supposed to mean? Asked the young man. When you say barter, you want me to exchange something with you? But I've got nothing to exchange, if that's what you're saying. Maxwell's eyes were now fixed on the young man's necklace. Well, you could give me your necklace in exchange for the carrot cake. It might be worth a lot more than the carrot cake, though. It does look rather special. Oh, this, said the young man casually, looking down at his necklace with a fondness in his eyes. You like it? If the truth be told, I'm not really into jewellery for men. Never have been. I've always regarded it as slightly naff. But what you're wearing is the exception to the rule. It's the coolest thing I ever saw, like something an Indian warrior would wear. It's incredibly macho and very striking. You wouldn't think of parting with it, would you? I could give you a voucher for 2 more carrot cakes for your mother if you like. You can't say fairer than that. Have we got a deal? The young man looked somewhat hesitant for a while, as if he was having an internal tug-of-war going on in his head. But he was being offered a carrot cake along with 2 extra cake vouchers, where his mother could buy 2 more carrot cakes. And if he gave this to her, she'd be over the moon. This was an extremely tempting offer. You wouldn't believe where I got this necklace from. I was camping in a camping ground in the Pacific Northwest. A place called Misty Hills Camping Ground. It's a private camping ground. Not many people know about it. Absolutely beautiful. Quite remote. I was taking a walking path through the trees one day with one of my friends, and lo and behold, we discovered the necklace lying on the ground. Someone must have accidentally dropped it. I did, of course, think of leaving it where I found it. But my friend Robin, who was with me at the time on our intrepid adventure, said I should keep it, because whoever dropped it would likely never be able to find it again. So that is why I decided to do so. It cost me nothing. But you aren't the first who's asked me if they could acquire it. For some reason, everybody wants it. I can understand why so many people want it. And why you probably don't want to part with it, said Maxwell, unable to disguise the obvious disappointment in his voice. When he'd seen the young man wearing the necklace, he had been drawn to it like a magpie is drawn to a shiny, sparkling piece of jewellery. In the past, Maxwell would never have had the balls to engage in such an unlikely exchange, but he really believed if you didn't ask for something, you probably wouldn't get it. So even if the young man wouldn't part with his necklace, there was no harm done. Look, I'm sorry you've had a run of bad luck this morning. I mean, being pickpocketed like that. That's not nice. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you the cake, providing you drop the money, at my stand next week. It's no big deal. You would do that for me? Asked the young man. That's awfully kind of you. Well, you said your mother loves carrot cake, and it is her birthday. She's obviously going to be a good customer of ours in the future, and we like to keep our customers happy. So of course I can do that for you. I'm delighted to help you in any way I can. It's called good customer service. Look, said the young man, I certainly appreciate your faith in me, and that you trust me to pay you back next week. But I'll take you up on your deal after all. You can have the necklace for 1 carrot cake and 2 vouchers for 2 more cakes. I think, as you say, it is a fair, reasonable deal. And I never paid for this necklace anyway. I simply found it. So I'm the one that's gaining more than you are. But are you sure you really want to part with this necklace of yours? It is rather special, said Maxwell, his face lighting up like a Christmas tree. I am willing to part with it, said the young man, handing him the necklace, which Maxwell took from him with a racing heart. He couldn't quite believe he had succeeded on this deal, and he really, really liked this necklace, and couldn't wait to put it on. He was sure it was the kind of necklace an Indian warrior would wear, and he'd always had a thing for Indian warriors. Yeah, I think I'm sure, said the man again. As we were saying, a deal is a deal. And I've never bartered before, so this is a first for me. By the way, my name is Kalani Cropper, although most people call me Killen. It's very good to meet you, Killen, said Maxwell with a bright grin. By the way, my name is Maxwell. He handed Killen the carrot cake, along with the 2 cake vouchers. I'm very sorry about your wallet being snatched like that. It's most unfortunate. I do hope they'll finally catch those culprits who are pickpocketing so many people at the farmer's market. Well, it's no biggie, said the young man. I only had a little cash in there. So let's just say whoever pickpocketed me, good luck to them, because they ain't going to get rich on the slim pickings in that wallet of mine. This time they picked the wrong mark. Well, you are wearing expensive sneakers, aren't you? Said Maxwell, looking down at Killen's sneakers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they assumed you were wealthy. Oh, these, said Killen rather dismissively. They're a gift from my uncle. Let's just say he's not short of a bob or two, and all the presents he gets me are extremely trendy. I'd never spend a fortune on sneakers myself, but my uncle is generous like that. So he does buy me some pretty cool stuff, the kind of stuff that most people our age like. None of it that comes cheap. It gives so many folk the wrong impression. They think I'm loaded, when nothing could be further from the truth. To tell you the truth, my parents never give me pocket money. I make my own money by working hard and doing odd jobs for people. Well, I'm the same, admitted Maxwell. That's how I make my money. My parents aren't struggling, of course. My father earns a relatively good income, but they never give me a penny. They believe I should be resourcefully independent by making my own money, which is why I work for my mother at this cake stand. Do you work here every weekend? Yes, I'm here every Saturday. I help my mother, but kudos to her. Let's just say she pays me extremely well to help her out like this, so it's very much worth my while. Well, I'm glad to hear it. It sounds to me as if your mother's quite the cook. She makes the most amazing cakes I can see. Pretty much. You're lucky to have a mother who can cook, said Killen, unable to hide the look of envy on his face. My mother is a dreadful baker in that regard. Everything she makes flops. She's always bought her cakes from people like your mother, who really know how to bake. She passes them off as her own. 2 of her friends have already asked her for your mother's recipe for carrot cake, because they believe my mother baked it. She's rather sneaky like that. She won't come clean to her friends about what a useless baker she actually is. Every time, let me tell you, she attempts to follow a recipe, she just can't seem to get it right. As I was saying, most of her cakes tend to flop, and she has a penchant for burning things all the time. I can't tell you the amount of times I've walked into the house and seen the kitchen practically on fire. It was hilarious last week when she invited a couple around for dinner and made out the curry she was serving them she cooked herself. And as she was plating it up for them, the top of the carton of the takeaway container came up into the sauce, and the couple saw it. They didn't say anything because they were far too polite, but my guess is they pretty much knew that my mother had not made that curry. Maxwell chuckled. That's hilarious. I don't know why your mother doesn't come clean and admit she can't bake. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And if she orders takeout, all well and good. I'm sure her guests wouldn't have minded. I'm sure they only care about the social interaction anyway. I don't know, said Killen. My mother believes people appreciate it when you make the effort to cook for them. It makes them feel special. So she doesn't think she's harming anyone when she claims she cooked the meal from scratch herself, like she tried to do with your mother's carrot cake. But her friends believe that she did bake it, when, of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Don't worry about that. A lot of people tell my mother they pass her cakes off as their own, Maxwell admitted. They invite people around to their houses and claim that they've been baking all morning. So your mother's not alone in her little deception. I think people can be too proud to admit they're no good in the kitchen. but I don't think it's anything to be remotely embarrassed about. I couldn't cook like my mother if you paid me to. So even though I really would like to be the male equivalent of Gordon Ramsay or Jamie Oliver, so to speak, I know that that ain't going to happen. Mind you, even if I say so myself, I'm pretty good with our barbecue at home. But then again, there isn't a great deal of skill in flipping around burgers or hot dogs on a grill, is there? I'm not bad with a barbecue either, admitted Killen. But like you, I can't cook to save my life. Although I would actually like to learn. Because I think women like men who can cook. It's a skill worth acquiring, let me tell you. Especially if you want to eat well. And eat healthy. You're not wrong about that, Maxwell admitted with a grin. He couldn't help but warm to Killen, as he was such a likeable young man. And maybe in another lifetime they would have been friends, he thought. Please give your mother my regards. Wish her a happy birthday, said Maxwell. And thanks again for the necklace, Killen. Are you sure you don't mind parting with it? I think it's a bit too late to change my mind about the necklace, don't you? I can see you're already very beguiled by it. I've never bartered for anything before in my life, so it was cool to make a deal without money. I've done rather well today, I think, apart from losing my wallet, of course, which was rather unfortunate. But my mother is going to love the necklace I bought her from that store over there, and she's going to be absolutely thrilled with this carrot cake and the vouchers, said Killen. I'm sure I'll see you around sometime, he said with a wink. It was very nice to meet you, Maxwell. Likewise, it was very good to meet you, Killen. I'm sure I'll see you around. When Killen had left, Maxwell stared down at the magnificent necklace in his hand. It was the coolest, most macho necklace he'd ever beheld. He couldn't believe that Killen had been willing to part with such a rare treasure, because had it belonged to him, wild horses would not have persuaded him to give it up. He couldn't believe he had acquired this necklace by exchanging it for a carrot cake and 2 vouchers, and in his opinion it was a steal, as the gemstone on the necklace was unlike anything he'd ever seen before, and as for the eagle's feather, it was about as close to perfect as you could get. Maxwell studied the necklace curiously for a moment, reflecting about what Killen had told him about it. He said he had found it on a camping trip in the Pacific Northwest, where he'd stayed at a private camping ground called Misty Hills. He and his friend Robin, during a casual stroll through the woods, had found the necklace lying on the ground. At first, Killen had been reluctant to take the necklace, as it obviously had belonged to someone at some point in time, and the knot at the back of the leather thong must have come loose, and the necklace fallen to the ground, without the wearer even being aware of it. Robin had told Killen that he should keep it, as whoever had dropped the necklace would likely never recover it. It was by chance that they had stumbled on it in the first place, and Maxwell could completely understand why Killen had decided to keep it. It certainly was the coolest necklace he'd ever seen. Yes, he did feel sorry for the person who had initially lost the necklace, but he didn't regret for a single second that it was now in his possession. After all, don't they often say that finders are keepers, especially when you find an item in a place where there is almost a 0 chance of the original owner ever recovering it. "How has business been? I'm so sorry I've been so long," said his mother, coming back to the stand carrying a large bag in her hand. "It was just so difficult to choose exactly which prints I wanted. They were all so very good." "It's been good," said Maxwell. "Business, I mean. You'll be glad to know most of the cakes have been sold. We've got 3 left and 2 packets of fudge, and then we're good to go. It's been a relatively easy day's work, for sure." "Well, I'm glad to hear that," said Michelle Capelli, who was looking quite pleased with herself. "What do you think, Maxwell? I really would value your opinion," she said, pulling out 2 black and white framed prints from her bag. The pictures were absolutely stunning, and depicted scenes done in black and white of 18th century Paris, where you could see the cobbled streets, horse-drawn chariots, and fashionable people, dressed in their 1800s regalia, walking down the streets. The photographs looked so real, you could almost imagine yourself in that time. "They're lovely," said Maxwell approvingly. They'll look great in the entrance hall, Mum." "Well, I'm so glad you like them, Maxwell. But then again, you've always had great taste. I'm also pleased I got them, because I'm quite sure, had I stayed here at the cake stand with you, these prints would have already been sold. They're selling like hotcakes, let me tell you. The man who runs the stand is a newcomer, and people probably are concerned that he might not return again to the farmer's market. And then they'd have missed out on acquiring one of these prints. He was telling me he's not sure whether he will continue having a stand here. So that's why I'm very glad I brought these from him." All of a sudden, Michelle Capelli noticed the necklace her son was wearing around his neck, because it had caught the light so magnificently, so that the gold glitter and the turquoise stone sparkled. "Goodness gracious me," she said, looking a little stunned. "Where on earth did you get that stunning necklace from, Maxwell? I've never seen you wear that before. That's new." She moved forward to examine the stone around her son's neck. "This is quite magnificent. I've never seen a gemstone like this. Turquoise with gold glitter inside it. I do love the way it catches the light. You've got to ask Mr. Falconer what it is when you see him. Now there's a man who knows his gemstones. Where did you get it? It looks incredibly good on you." "It's a long story, Mum. A young man called Killen, who's probably 2 years older than I am at a guess, told me his mother is crazy about your carrot cake. She said it's the best she's ever tasted." "Oh, that's very good to hear," said Michelle Capelli, looking extremely pleased. "Well, it is an exceptional recipe. It's a very moist carrot cake. Well, anyway, it turns out that Killen wanted to get the cake for his mother's birthday. And lo and behold, as he reached into his back pocket, his wallet was gone." "Gone?" asked Mrs. Capelli. "What do you mean by gone, Maxwell? Are you saying he left his wallet at home? I suppose that's an easy mistake to make. It can happen to the best of us." "Well, that's not exactly what happened to his wallet, Mum. I'm afraid you know the signs around the farmer's market, warning people to look out for potential pickpocketers." "Oh, yes, what about them? Nasty business, isn't it? There's definitely pickpocketing happening around here. I know a couple of people who've been victims of it, you know." "Oh, my goodness, is that what you're saying? Is that what happened to Killen? His wallet was stolen?" "I'm afraid so, Mum. A young woman distracted him by telling him about a stand at the farmer's market that she clearly didn't own. The next thing he knows, someone bumps into him from behind, and it must have been that opportune moment that his wallet was very sneakily snatched from his back pocket. What an unfortunate thing to happen to the young man. I hope for his sake he wasn't carrying around too much cash on his person, let alone any credit cards that need to be cancelled. There's nothing more inconvenient as far as I'm concerned than having to call up a bank to cancel your cards." "Well, luckily Killen didn't have much money in his wallet, and he never mentioned a credit card to me, so I think I can safely assume he wasn't carrying one. I guess his wallet was stolen, probably because he looked like he had lots of money on him. He was wearing those seriously expensive sneakers, the ones that the wealthy people buy. And let's just say, he was wearing trendy clothes as well. So I think, from a pickpocketer's perspective, I'm quite sure they thought he was carrying around a stash of cash. I have to tell you, on first impressions, he looked like your typical rich kid, but it turns out his uncle buys him all this trendy stuff that costs an absolute fortune, I believe." "Good Lord," said Mrs. Capelli, frowning. "I ask you, what on earth is this world coming to? In my day, I can assure you, I never heard of people pickpocketing, except in busy parts of the world, like London and New York, perhaps. But in a very laid-back farmer's market, you certainly wouldn't expect this to happen." "Well, maybe that's why that pickpocketing pair are targeting people here, because no one expects it to be happening. So people are not nervously looking over their shoulders every 2 seconds. They're not paying attention, so they're sitting ducks for criminals like this." "You make an excellent point, Maxwell. I hadn't thought of it like that, really. People at the farmer's market are going to have to seriously watch their belongings, their wallets and purses and everything else besides. It's ridiculous it's come to this, but we need to be careful. Sorry, you were telling me how you acquired this very unusual necklace of yours. I take it it's got something to do with this Killen that you met. Well, Killen was wearing the necklace, wasn't he? I took one look at it, Mum, and I'm not the kind of person that usually wants things other people have, but I was so drawn to the necklace. It's the coolest piece of jewellery I've ever seen. It's like something an Indian warrior would wear. That's why I like it so much. Don't you remember, Mum, when I was a kid, I loved playing cowboys and Indians all the time, and I always wanted to be the Indian warrior. Oh, I haven't forgotten that. You always wanted to be the Indian warrior. We used to buy you Indian headdresses and costumes all the time. One question I'd like to know, though, is why would Killen part with such a unique piece of jewellery like this? Well, that's a very good question, Mum, and I'm as flummoxed as you are, that he was so willing to part with it. He didn't have any money to buy the carrot cake, as his wallet had been snatched, so I just asked him if he fancied bartering. I told him he could have the carrot cake and 2 vouchers for the necklace, and he seemed to think it was a great deal. Actually, to be fair, at first he was rather reluctant to part with his necklace, and actually I genuinely thought he would refuse me. He was locked in thought for a moment, as if weighing up the options for himself, and he suddenly took me quite by surprise when he said it was a good deal, and that he'd accept my offer. He said he'd never bartered before a day in his life, so this was the first time for him. He said many people had actually asked him if they could buy the necklace from him, as people tend to be rather bedazzled by it. I was so chuffed, Mum, that he agreed to give me the necklace. When he agreed to the deal, I was almost in a stunned stupor, I have to say. I felt sure I had misheard him. Well, you're a very good negotiator, aren't you, Maxwell? You know how to make a deal, and to think outside the box. I'm very impressed with your ingenious approach. Well done. I just feel terribly sorry for this Killen, having to part with such a fine-looking necklace like this. It really is one of a kind. I wonder where he bought it, because I imagine that shop selling those necklaces is exceedingly popular with men. Most men would love a necklace like the one you're wearing, even if they're not inclined to wear jewellery. It looks so good on you, Maxwell, it really does. That's the thing, Mum. Killen didn't exactly buy it from anyone. He found it in the woods on a camping trip, quite by accident, really. It was lying on the ground, and he knew whoever had dropped it would likely never find it again, so he decided to keep it. He was casually walking in the woods with a friend of his called Robin. At first he had doubts about taking the necklace, as he was convicted with a bit of a guilty conscience, you could say, but he was so drawn to it, and Robin encouraged him to take it, as he said the original owner would never ever find it. Well, in those circumstances he's probably absolutely right, said Mrs. Capelli. If he'd left the woods, it would likely have never been found, the necklace, I mean. He might as well have kept it for himself and enjoyed the benefits of wearing a beautiful piece like that. Maybe it came into his possession because it was just meant to be. But it's mine now, Mum. Well, maybe it was meant to be yours, said Michelle Capelli. I mean, you were saying other people have asked this young man if they could buy his necklace, and he refused them point blank. But he didn't refuse you. I hadn't thought of it like that, Mum, said Maxwell, looking extremely pleased. Maybe it's meant to be mine after all. It was not long before 2 customers brought the final 3 cakes, and a young girl purchased the last remaining bags of fudge. And then both Michelle and Maxwell were ready to pack up the tables and the baskets they had brought along with them, and make their merry way back home, in an SUV that was now significantly lighter after the morning. They left the market an hour earlier than they had anticipated. It was as Michelle Capelli's car took a left-hand turn in the road and rolled down the familiar street of the prepossessing neighbourhood where they resided, that they noticed a man walking his black and white Dalmatian down the street. It was no other than Mr. Falconer, the man Michelle Capelli had been talking about only moments before. Mr. Falconer was at a rough guess a man in his early 60s, who knew everything there was to know about gemstones. He did have the finest collection of gemstones that Michelle Capelli had ever laid eyes on. Her car drew to a swift stop. "Talk of the devil!" she chuckled, looking at her son with bright, eager eyes. "I was only talking about Mr. Falconer earlier, wasn't I? And as luck would have it, we've run into him. Now is your chance, Maxwell. Do what you need to do. For a moment, Maxwell looked a little baffled, as if he couldn't quite understand what his mother was trying to say. What are you talking about, Mum? Why do I need to speak to Mr. Faulkner? You've completely lost me on this one. Oh, goodness gracious me, have you already forgotten what we were talking about, Maxwell, only a moment ago at the farmer's market? I was actively encouraging you to speak to Mr. Faulkner about the necklace you're wearing. Don't you want to know what kind of gemstone is on it? Oh, of course, said Maxwell, clutching the leather thong of his necklace and glancing down at the shimmering stone. I'd really like to know what it is. At that, Maxwell quickly climbed out of the passenger side door of his car and sashayed towards Mr. Faulkner with a bright, warm smile on his face. Mr. Faulkner looked rather bemused that the Capelli car had just suddenly stopped in the road like that, and Maxwell was sashaying towards him. His Dalmatian Cutie Pie was sniffing some grass on the pavement that seemed to have attracted his interest. "Hello, Mr. Faulkner. It's a lovely day, isn't it? How is Cutie Pie over there?" "It's an excellent day. Fabulous weather," admitted Mr. Faulkner. "I always appreciate a long walk around the neighbourhood when the weather is this good. You can see Cutie Pie, if you're asking after him, is fully absorbed with the scent that she's picked up, and sometimes I have to drag her away from the smells she encounters, because she seems to refuse to want to leave them. And right now it's one of those occasions. She's probably picked up on a scent trail from one of the neighbourhood dogs." "Well, I can see she's fully absorbed," chuckled Maxwell. "I guess dogs will be dogs." "Yes, you're right about that one, Maxwell. Is everything all right?" asked Mr. Faulkner, noticing that Mrs. Capelli was waving a hand at him, as if to say hello. So Mr. Faulkner waved back at her. "Everything's fine," said Maxwell. "Mum has just stopped her car in the middle of the road because we were talking about you a little while earlier at the farmer's market, and then, as luck would have it, we drove down the street, and there you were." "You were talking about me?" asked Mr. Faulkner, rubbing a hand gingerly across his moustache. "That's a turn-up for the books," he joked, with a twinkle in his brown eyes. "Not many people talk about me these days. But let me tell you, Maxwell, when I was your age, the girls would talk about me a whole lot. I was quite good-looking back in the day, would you believe it? Even though it might be hard to understand now. So tell me, why were you talking about me?" "Well, Mum was telling me she's seen your sizable collection of gemstones. She says you know everything there is to know about them." "Well, she's not wrong about that," said Mr. Faulkner, looking pleased. "I do happen to love gemstones very much, and what I don't know about them is frankly not worth knowing." "That's why we were talking about you, Mr. Faulkner, because we wanted you to know if you could tell us what stone this is," said Maxwell, removing the unusual necklace with the eagle's feather and the turquoise stone off his neck, and handing it over to Mr. Faulkner to inspect, who on seeing the stone eyed it rather greedily, like a magpie might eye something that glittered in the sun, with eager eyes. Mr. Faulkner's thick fingers, covered in age spots, examined the stone very curiously. "This thing of yours is astonishingly beautiful. Actually, it's quite magnificent. Where did you get it from?" "If the truth be told, I have never seen anything like this before a day in my life." Maxwell shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. He could see Mr. Faulkner was growing red in the face with excitement. His fingers seemed to be shaking as he stared at the stone longingly. So appreciative was he of the stone that Maxwell was secretly beginning to regret showing it to him in the first place. But Maxwell knew that there was no way on God's green earth that he would part with this stone. This necklace was his now, and come hell or high water, he was not going to part with it. "It's a long story, Mr. Faulkner. I was at the farmer's market, and a young man didn't have any money to buy my mother's carrot cake, because unfortunately he got pickpocketed there, so his wallet was taken. I decided to do a deal with him. I swapped his necklace for my mother's carrot cake and 2 vouchers. I thought the man would refuse me, but I believe in asking on the off chance that he might agree to a little bartering, and believe it or not, he did. I really like this piece, and I've never been into jewellery much, but this is very different. My mother says the stone is absolutely striking. She's never seen anything like it. She thought that you, of all people, might perhaps know what it is. I can't believe this young man gave you his necklace. You bumped into him at the farmer's market, you say, and he was willing to exchange this with you for a carrot cake and a couple of vouchers. Forgive me for saying this, son. I don't mean to be rude, as I know your mother's a marvellous cook, but a stone like this is one of a kind. Did you happen to ask the young man how he came to acquire such an unusual, unorthodox piece of jewellery? It's very macho, isn't it? There's nothing remotely feminine about this piece. I can see why you want to wear it so much. Everybody's going to be admiring it. As it happens, I did ask him, Mr. Faulkner, where he got it. He said he was on a camping trip, staying at a camping ground in the Pacific Northwest, known as Misty Hills. I believe it's a private camping ground, and the people who camp there pay a yearly membership fee. He went for a walk in the woods, a casual stroll with his friend Robin, and quite by chance he stumbled across the necklace on the ground. I believe the leather knot at the back had come loose, so whoever was wearing it must have dropped it. The young man, who's probably only a couple of years older than I am, was reluctant to take the necklace because it didn't belong to him, but his friend Robin encouraged him to do so, claiming that whoever the necklace belonged to probably would never find it, so he might as well keep it for himself, rather than leave a piece of jewellery like this, forsaken in the wilderness, to probably end up being buried by the burgeoning vegetation. Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with this Robin fellow, said Mr. Faulkner approvingly. Certainly if I was to stumble by random chance on a piece of jewellery like this on a casual stroll through the woods, I'd definitely keep it for myself. I mean, it's not as if you can hand it over to the local police station or anything. I remember when me and the wife were walking on the beach one day. She found washed up on the shore a very pretty ring buried beneath the sand. It wasn't valuable or anything. It was a vintage piece. Very old, you could see that. She still wears it today. Things like that will never be recovered by the original owner, so you might as well keep them. So are you seriously saying, Mr. Faulkner, that you don't know what gemstone this actually is? Asked Maxwell, looking somewhat incredulous. Well, it's definitely a gemstone. Of that I'm in no doubt, admitted Mr. Faulkner. But let's just say I've never seen anything like it before. And I'm sorry, but I can't tell you what it is. But it's one of the finest gemstones I've ever seen. I like the way it catches the light, and the gold glitter in the turquoise is absolutely mesmerizing. You wouldn't be willing to sell the piece to me? How about I give you $1,000 for it? Asked Mr. Faulkner. It's a generous offer, Mr. Faulkner, but thanks all the same. I'd rather keep the piece if you don't mind. I really don't want to sell it. How about if I buy it for $3,000, young man? You could do a lot with $3,000, Maxwell, said Mr. Faulkner, his eyes widening. Go on. You don't want to refuse me on an offer like this. Sorry, Mr. Faulkner, said Maxwell, suddenly growing quite possessive towards the piece of jewellery that he had attained at the farmer's market. Mr. Faulkner's eagerness to buy it from him made him all the more determined to keep it. I'm sorry, Mr. Faulkner, it's kind of you to offer, but as I was saying, I really like this piece, and I don't want to part with it, even though your offer is extremely tempting. Mr. Faulkner reluctantly returned the piece of jewellery back to Maxwell. His eyes were looking longingly at the piece, but he shook his head very sorrowfully and said, Well, I guess you win some and you lose some, don't you? Maybe it's not my lucky day today. Maxwell bid Mr. Faulkner farewell, and the man continued along his way. As Michel Capelli drove past him in the road, he waved at the both of them, while Michel hooted at him by blowing the horn to acknowledge his wave. Well, she asked, her eyes brightening, what did Mr. Faulkner have to say about your gemstone? I could see he looked very excited about it. I do believe his fingers were trembling. His eyes were so wide. I think he really liked it, from what I could see. He was very excited, Mum. He wanted to buy it from me. Believe it or not, he offered me $3,000 for it. Mrs. Capelli looked as if she was about to faint. He offered you $3,000 for the gemstone you're wearing around your neck? And you didn't accept his offer, Maxwell? Said his mother, looking somewhat startled. Mum, not everything is about money, you know. I really like this piece and I want to keep it. Don't get me wrong, Maxwell. I think you did the right thing refusing him. You do? Asked Maxwell, looking somewhat surprised at his mother. Oh, absolutely, she said. Some things in life are worth a whole lot more than money. Think about that cameo brooch, for example, that I got from your great-grandmother. It might not be worth a whole lot of money, but I would not be willing to part with it, as it has a huge sentimental value to me. And from what I can see, you've already become extremely attached to the stone you're wearing. And if Mr. Falconer was offering you so much for it, then in my book it must be worth keeping. To tell you the truth, Mum, I don't know if it has any financial value, but I don't care about things like that. Mr. Falconer liked it very much. He said he'd never seen a gemstone like this before. But the weirdest thing of all is he doesn't know what it is, and I find that rather strange. He doesn't know what it is? Asked Mrs. Capelli, looking amazed. Well, if that's the case, my advice is for you to hang on to it like gold dust, as you've obviously got something incredibly special and unique. And besides anything else, that necklace looks remarkably good on you. When Maxwell and his mother returned home, it wasn't a surprise to Maxwell to see that his father had a very different reaction to the necklace he was wearing. He told him how he'd come by the necklace, and how Mr. Falconer had offered him $3,000 for the thing. You saw Mr. Falconer? He asked, looking somewhat bemused. Yes, we did, as it happens, on the way back home. He was walking his Dalmatian, Sweetie Pie, Michelle Capelli explained. It turns out he's never seen a gemstone like the one Maxwell is wearing. He offered to buy it from him. At first he offered Maxwell $1,000, and then it went up to $3,000. Maxwell believes he might have even offered more if he hadn't told him with absolute certainty that he didn't want to sell the necklace at all. I was watching everything from the front seat of my car. I saw them discussing the stone together, and I want to tell you, Julius, Mr. Falconer's eyes were as round as an owl's, and I'm not kidding either. He looked both enchanted and bedazzled by Maxwell's stone. Not that I blame him, of course, because it's an absolute beauty. But there was no doubt in my mind. He seriously wanted it. I don't get it, said Mr. Capelli, shaking his head vigorously. What on earth is wrong with you, son? Turning down $3,000 like that? Are you insane? That piece of jewelry you're wearing is nothing special, and is probably not worth all that much. And you choose to look a gift horse in the mouth? Where is your business sense? This is a deal of note, and you flat out reject it. I'm disappointed in you, son, that you haven't got a keen eye for a good deal. If I were you, I'd get on to your cell at once, give Mr. Falconer a call, and tell him you've changed your mind. And yes, you'd like to accept his offer for the $3,000. Oh, don't be ridiculous, sweetheart, said Mrs. Capelli, coming to her son's defence. When Maxwell saw the young man wearing the necklace at the farmer's market, he knew he really liked it and really wanted it. When the young man had no money to pay for a carrot cake, to buy for his mother for her birthday, Maxwell was ingenious, if you must know. He chose to barter with the young man for the necklace and to do an exchange. And that takes a great deal of initiative, so don't you dare undermine our son and claim he's got no business sense. Our son has got the gift of the gab, I'm telling you, she said in a warning voice, almost as if she was telling Julius Capelli not to dare challenge her on this, otherwise he'd be sorry. Fair enough, said Mr. Capelli. If you really like the necklace, then you must keep it. Come on, sweetheart, said Mrs. Capelli. Admit it. The necklace looks extremely good on Maxwell. It's very masculine, isn't it? I suppose it does look rather good, admitted Mr. Capelli, grumbling under his breath. I'm glad you're both back, after your stint at the farmer's market. It was a lonely ordeal without you around, I have to tell you. Well, we're back now, aren't we? And I'm very glad you missed us, Julius, said Mrs. Capelli teasingly, giving her husband a tender kiss on the cheek. The rest of the afternoon at the Capelli household was a relaxing one. Maxwell and his family contentedly watched a movie on television together. Mrs. Capelli ordered a take-out pizza from the nearby Italian restaurant, and the family ate a family-sized margarita together. as Mrs. Capelli liked to make Saturday evening special to appease her somewhat pugnacious husband, as Julius always seemed to feel cheated when she abandoned him on a Saturday morning, so this was her way of making it up to him. Julius Capelli loved eating pizza, and he enjoyed watching movies as well. It was 8 o'clock in the evening. Mrs. Capelli's cell phone began to beep. "Damn!" she said, lifting her cell phone up to examine the caller ID. She knew while enjoying family time together she should really put her cell phone on aeroplane mode, but she didn't have the heart to do it, just in case she missed that all-important phone call. It was instinctive for her to just answer the call, even if it was a rather inconvenient time for someone to be calling her. "Hello, Mr. Falconer," she said. "I know it was rather surprised to run into you like that. I'm sorry I didn't say hello to you, but I was just in the car. But of course you can have a word with him. Yes, he's right here as it happens, with me in the living room. We're eating pizza and watching movies together. We like to relax on a Saturday evening, you see. Yes, it's been a fabulous day. The sunshine has been magnificent. No, don't you worry, it's no bother at all. Of course you haven't disturbed us." She handed her cell phone to Maxwell, who was sitting back comfortably on the sofa, his eyes pinned to the television screen. "It's Mr. Falconer for you," she whispered. "He wants a word." Maxwell made a disgruntled face that expressed very clearly that he didn't appreciate Mr. Falconer intruding so rudely on his Saturday evening like this. He really wasn't in the mood to talk to the man. Julius Capelli, who was seated on the chair opposite his son, having heard that Mr. Falconer was phoning, sat up straight, his eyes fixing on his son, as he watched Maxwell reluctantly taking the call from his mother. Maxwell groaned inwardly, as he knew what this call was about. Why didn't Mr. Falconer get the message? He wasn't interested in selling his necklace. "Hello, Mr. Falconer," he said, trying to sound polite. "Look, son," came Mr. Falconer's apologetic voice, "I'm very sorry to disturb you at this time of the evening. Your mum says you're watching television together as a family. I didn't mean to interrupt or intrude like this. I apologize profusely." "There's no need, Mr. Falconer. What can I do for you?" There was an awkward pause at the end of the line, and Mr. Falconer suddenly said, "Well, I've been thinking of the gemstone necklace you showed me today. I've never seen anything like it before, Maxwell. It really is a magnificent piece." "What about it, Mr. Falconer?" "Well, I really like it, Maxwell, very, very much. I've been doing some research online. There really is no other gemstone quite like it. It's almost as if the gemstone that you're wearing shouldn't even exist on our planet." "Well, you did say you thought it was rare, Mr. Falconer," Maxwell replied. "I did indeed," said Mr. Falconer, "and for that reason I decided to up my offer on the necklace. I think you will find I'm being extremely generous, Maxwell. I'm going to give you a great deal." "Mr. Falconer, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but I told you I'm not willing to sell the necklace. I thought I made my feelings clear about the matter. But you haven't heard my offer, son. You shouldn't refuse it until you know how much I'm willing to pay you for it. Mr. Falconer, I really don't want to sell the necklace for money. I mean, I really like it myself. I don't want to part with it. How about I give you $10,000, son? Now that's a whole lot of money, and I'm sure a young man like you would appreciate having a little nest egg like that you can put away. Think what you can do with $10,000. It's a lot of money. Mr. Falconer, I'm sorry, but I told you I'm not selling the necklace. Your offer may be generous, but I'm afraid I'm going to pass on it, as tempting as it may be. But, son, I don't think the gemstone you've got has much monetary value. I'm going to be honest with you on this one. It's just that I'm very passionate about gemstones, and yours is so unusual that I'm willing to pay you big bucks for the necklace. I really like it, Maxwell. I can't stop thinking about it. That stone is beautiful. I've never seen one so lovely. And also I like the eagle's feather on the necklace. It's an extraordinary piece. Mr. Falconer, I appreciate your offer, and I appreciate you like my necklace, but I really don't want to part with it, so I'm afraid I'm going to turn it down. I would offer you more, son, I really would, but my wife Ivor Well, she's a very difficult woman, you see. Obsessed with watching every single penny in our savings account. If more than 10,000 disappeared from our account, I'd never hear the end of it from her. Furthermore, if she knew I was offering you 10,000 for a gemstone, she'd lose her mind on this, and I'd be hung, drawn, and quartered. And I mean that quite literally. My wife thinks my passion for gemstones is over the top, you see. You know what, Mr. Faulkner? Your wife Iva's right. You don't want to be spending your savings on a gemstone that doesn't have any monetary value. I know you're interested in my piece, but I'm not going to sell it. My decision is final. Well, if you change your mind, son, you will let me know, won't you? But of course I will, Mr. Faulkner. But I really don't think I'll change my mind. So please don't get your hopes up. Once Maxwell had ended the call with Mr. Faulkner, he let out a huge, disgruntled sigh and handed the cell phone back to his mother. Why does Mr. Faulkner keep bothering me? He complained bitterly. Does he not understand the meaning of the word no? Or is that a foreign language to the man? I wish to God I'd never shown him my necklace in the first place. I never knew he'd react like this. Oh dear, you don't look very amused, Maxwell, said Mrs. Capelli sympathetically. I suppose there are no prizes for guessing what that phone call was about. I take it Mr. Faulkner was asking you if you changed your mind about accepting his offer. Honestly, what are some people like? As you rightly say, Maxwell, no means no, and you should always stick to your guns, so I'm proud of you there. Don't allow people to manipulate you. It's a very important life lesson that one should learn very early on. Maxwell nodded. I do feel sorry for Mr. Faulkner, Mum. I really do. It turns out he really wants my gemstone. Can you believe it? He offered me $10,000 for it on the phone. I know it's a whole lot of money, but I'm not accepting his offer. He said if his wife Iva knew about his offer to me, she'd do her nut, as she watches over their savings account like a hawk, and by the sounds of things, she probably needs to. Mr. Capelli's jaw dropped open so wide that he was beginning to look like a gog-eyed goldfish. $10,000 he offered you for that piece of junk around your neck? You've got to be kidding me, right? What on earth is wrong with the man? I'm sure he can't possibly afford to be offering large sums of money like that for items not worth very much. I'm sorry, but the man needs his head examining. I certainly empathise with his wife, Iva. It sounds that Mr. Faulkner is a bit of a loose cannon with his finances. I would have said you should have snapped up his offer by being a shrewd businessman here, Maxwell. But certainly if you accepted his money, you'd be robbing the man blind. And I cannot have that on my conscience. I'm sure he needs the money for his retirement funds in the future. I'm very glad you refused him, because there would be something very unethical about agreeing to a deal like that. And I'm sure his wife Iva wouldn't be remotely amused if she knew about any of this. That woman I know is as shrewd as a hawk, and that's why she manages their finances. She told me once that if her husband took charge of their money, he'd have whittled it away a long time ago. At the time I didn't think she was being serious, but it sounds like she's absolutely right on the money about that. Well, that's why he didn't offer me any more money, Dad, for the necklace, I mean, said Maxwell. He reckons his wife Iva is a difficult woman, who watches their savings account like a dog guarding a prison cell. My bet is if I agreed to his offer in the first place, Iva would likely be at our front door demanding the money back from me, and insisting that Mr. Faulkner gave me back my necklace. I've met Iva before. She may be small, but she's a no-nonsense kind of woman. I understand she used to be a headmistress at an all-girls school, so she can be quite formidable at the best of times. You know what, Maxwell? You're probably right. I do think that is what would happen, Mrs. Capelli agreed. Iva would not stand for her husband's nonsense, especially if he was whittling away their finances like that. For the record, son, I'm very glad you refused him. Honestly, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Faulkner loves gemstones with a passion, and it's good to be passionate about things. I encourage that, and I think it's healthy. But he doesn't have much common sense. Life is expensive. Bills need paying. So spending money on extravagant, frivolous things you really don't need is absolutely ridiculous." Mrs. Capelli turned around to look at her husband and Maxwell. "I don't know about the two of you, but are you both game for watching another movie tonight, before we retire to bed for the evening?" "That would be very agreeable," said Mr. Capelli. "Another movie would be very nice. How about you, Maxwell? Are you up for watching another movie tonight?" "Why not?" said Maxwell. "I haven't got anything better to do." As the Capelli family settled down to watch the movie together, Maxwell got extremely comfortable on the family couch, covering himself with a light blanket. But as the movie progressed, it became rather tedious and dull. Nothing about the storyline grabbed his attention. His eyes began to droop, growing heavier by the second, and he got progressively sleepier and sleepier, and before long he drifted off into a light sleep. It must have been about 10 o'clock, when Maxwell suddenly woke with a start. His mother was shaking him rather vigorously, like she did when waking him up to go to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning. "Maxwell," she whispered, "it's late. You should go to bed. We've all been drifting off to sleep during the second movie. In fact, you and your father have both nodded off. And you didn't miss very much. Honestly, it was utterly mediocre to say the very least. And there wasn't much of a storyline to it. We've had a long day today, and I think you're very tired. Your father is fast asleep. He's snoring there on the chair, while Boogle is lying fast asleep on his lap. So I'll need to wake them both up in a second. And I don't want to, because they look adorable together. I've even taken a picture of the both of them. And I also taped their snores, because they're hilarious to listen to. Although your father's not going to appreciate that at all. But I think it's Betty buys for all of us, don't you? If we end up sleeping in the lounge together overnight like this, in the morning we'll wake up with dreadful crinks in our necks and extremely stiff backs, and your father will not thank me for any of that. Would you like me to make you a hot toddy before bed? A chocolate, perhaps?" "No, thanks, Mum," said Maxwell, rising quickly to his feet and stretching his arms over his head. "I'm completely bushed. I'm exhausted," he admitted, letting out a huge yawn. "I'm going to bed." Indeed, Maxwell was so exhausted, when he got to his bedroom, he didn't even bother to change his clothes, although he did take his shoes and socks off, and slipped under the bed covers. The moment his head hit the pillow, he had drifted off into a deep, contented sleep. But this was a sleep like no other that he'd ever experienced before, because he was engaging in such a lucid dream that felt almost real. In the dream, he found himself wandering down a woodland trail in the woods. It was a magnificently beautiful day, with prisms of soft sunlight filtering through the branches of the trees. He could feel its pleasing warmth magnanimously brushing against his skin, and could see the buzzing insects flying over various plants in the grove. He looked down at his feet to discover that they were bare, and that perplexed him considerably, as he couldn't understand why he would go walking without any shoes on his feet. Maxwell treaded across the soft soil and fallen leaves, and he walked through the trees. Sometimes he'd bend down to remove a thorn from the underside of his bare feet, as he'd feel the painful jab of the sharp claw piercing his skin, like a needle drawing blood. The woodgrove smelt absolutely amazing, a mixture of floral and woody terpenes, which were extremely pronounced. He could hear whistles and stopped dead in his track, wondering where they came from. Was it a bird making that whistling sound, he wondered? He noticed a sign on the path which read, "The Goblin's Triangle," and he chuckled to himself when he read the sign, for the name was somewhat amusing to him. All of a sudden the woodgrove was infiltrated with a thick wall of white mist that was foggy and dense, so much so that he couldn't see his way ahead of himself. And that was when he noticed that moving through the mist were 3 lofty, dark, shadowy silhouettes. The mist suddenly appeared to vaporize as if by magic, and then standing before him were 3 Bigfoot. Even in his dreamlike state, he gasped at the gargantuan size of these creatures. He noticed 2 of the Bigfoots were wearing similar necklaces to the one he owned. The largest male Bigfoot was wearing nothing around his neck, almost as if something was missing. He was massive both in stature and size, and had the face of a powerful Indian warrior. Everything about him was regal and majestic. The Bigfoot stretched out his powerful hand and said in a booming voice, "You have something that belongs to me. I want it back. You need to return it now." The Bigfoot was looking at the necklace that Maxwell was wearing around his neck. "You want this?" Maxwell asked him. The Bigfoot nodded. "It belongs to me." Moments later, after Maxwell woke up, he was sweating profusely, wondering what the dream could possibly mean. But certainly in the nights that followed, the same dream haunted him again and again, rather like a radio tuning into the same program every single night. Even when Maxwell was wide awake, the Bigfoot's voice appeared to boom in his head. "I want it back. It belongs to me." The most bizarre thing of all was when Maxwell looked under his feet the following morning after experiencing these paradoxical dreams. The underside of his feet was badly scratched up, without any earthly rhyme or reason for such a strange conundrum. There were mud stains mingled with blood on his sheets. Indeed, in his dream, as he walked through the grove in his bare feet, they would get badly scratched up. But that was in a dream which wasn't real. So why on earth was he waking up to find his feet so dirty and soiled, so badly scratched up and bloody? Maxwell knew he needed to speak to Killen about this, and he prayed hard that he'd encounter the young man again at the farmer's market the following Saturday. As luck would have it, he wasn't to be disappointed, as the following Saturday at the farmer's market, Killen came to their stand, with a voucher in his hand to pick up another carrot cake for his mother, who was inviting people over to the house for tea on the Sunday, and had asked her son to pick up another cake for her, with one of the vouchers. "Hello again," said Maxwell, introducing his mother to the young man. "Mum, this is Killen, the man I told you about, who bartered your carrot cake with me for the necklace I'm wearing." "It's so lovely to meet you, Killen. I've heard all about you from Maxwell here, and I'm delighted that you considered my carrot cake worth trading for this beautiful necklace of yours." "Well, it certainly was worth trading, ma'am. Absolutely delicious it was." "Well, I'm so glad you liked it," said Mrs. Capelli, looking very pleased. "I see you're wearing the necklace," said Killen with a smile. "It looks very cool on you." "It does, doesn't it?" said Mrs. Capelli, looking approvingly at the necklace. "My son absolutely loves it. He refuses to take it off." "I do like it very much," Maxwell agreed. "About that, Killen, do you mind if I have a word with you in private? I could buy you a coffee if you like at the cafe over there in about an hour's time. I just want to pick your head about something rather bizarre concerning the necklace you gave me. Is that all right with you?" "That's fine by me," said Killen, looking curious. "I tell you what, I'll meet you at the cafe in an hour's time." "What a lovely young man," said Mrs. Capelli approvingly, as Killen walked away with one of her carrot cakes. "I'm very glad his mother approves of my carrot cake. It makes her a loyal customer, and those are the very best, I have to tell you. What is it you want to talk to Killen about concerning your necklace?" "Oh, it's nothing," said Maxwell, waving a hand in the air dismissively. By all accounts, it was an hour after Maxwell left his mother's cake stand to go to the cafe for a much-needed break. He was heartily relieved to see that Killen had kept his word and was waiting for him. They settled down to have a coffee together at one of the tables. Killen's face looked both intrigued and curious at the same time, almost as if he had a good idea about what their rendezvous was really about. Maxwell looked somewhat awkward, as he said somewhat uncomfortably to Killen, "I know this is going to sound awfully strange and very bizarre, but I was just wondering if by any chance, after you acquired the necklace that you gave me, if when you went to bed at night, did you have any strange dreams?" "It's happening to you as well?" asked Killen, looking confounded. "Are you dreaming about 3 Bigfoot in the woods, 2 of them wearing necklaces much like the one that you got from me? The largest Bigfoot is not wearing a necklace around his neck. He steps forward in the dream. He asks for his necklace back. Is that what you're dreaming?" "Goodness, I don't know what to say, because that's exactly what happened to me," said Killen, looking baffled. "In my dream I was walking barefoot in the wood grove where I found the necklace, exactly the same place, at the Misty Hills campground. And when I wake up in the morning, my feet are also cut up. When you asked me to barter the necklace from me, That was the only reason I was willing to part with it. I thought it would put an end to the dreams, but I had no idea I was transferring the dreams onto you. I'm very sorry about that." "And did you, once you gave the necklace to me, stop dreaming about these Bigfoot?" asked Maxwell. "I did," said Killen. "But every night while the necklace was in my possession, the large Bigfoot was asking for it back. Now it seems I've passed the problem over to you, and I'm very sorry about that. What do you think we should do about it? It seems clear to me that that Bigfoot will keep pestering you until he gets his necklace back. What do you think? I think that our dreams must be real, that Bigfoot that steps forward in the dream is telepathically communicating with both of us. He wants his necklace back," said Maxwell in earnest. "The fact that our feet are both cut up in the dream is the Bigfoot's way of telling us that the dream is real and that we need to believe it. I think the necklace clearly belongs to the large Bigfoot, and we need to get it back to him. I can't go on having these dreadful dreams. It's driving me insane. You know where this Misty Hills campground is, don't you? In the Pacific Northwest. I need you to take me there, Killen, so that we can return the necklace to the Bigfoot. We can put it back where you initially found it. It needs to go back to its rightful owner. Don't you agree?" "I do agree," Killen admitted, "and I'm sorry I dragged you into this mess. Obviously these Bigfoots mean business. They're real, and the large male wants his necklace back. Do you think your mother will give you next weekend off? We could go camping together at the Misty Hills campground on Saturday morning. I have a membership there. It would be fun, and we can return the necklace to the Bigfoot. What do you think about that?" "I think it's a brilliant idea, Killen," said Maxwell approvingly. "My mother can manage her stand here on her own for one weekend, I'm most sure. It certainly won't kill her. I'd like to take you up on your offer, Killen." "Leave it to me, then," said Killen. "I'll organise the whole thing. And don't worry about the camping gear. My family are outdoor enthusiasts. I'll pick you up on Saturday morning from your home. I'll pay for the petrol. You don't need to bother about anything. Just bring yourself along. Although if you like, you can bring the food for the trip. I'll bring the drinks. Your mother can throw in some of her chocolate brownies for good measure. And you could get some meats and salads for the barbecue that we have in the evening. They have a refrigeration unit at the camp, especially for perishables." "Sounds like a great deal," said Maxwell, looking extremely pleased. "I'm just in shock that you and I had the same dream night after night about that male Bigfoot, who has been able to reach us through the power of telepathic exchange, for asking for his necklace back. In my opinion, it's nothing short of incredulous, and I feel a moral sense of obligation to return the necklace to its rightful owner, because it's not ours to keep. Not now that the owner has come forward to claim it." As luck would have it, Maxwell's mother, Michelle, was only too delighted to see that her son appeared to have made good friends with Killen, and learning the two of them were going camping together really pleased her. She had no idea, of course, that Maxwell was being haunted by a dream that was urging him to take the trip in the first place in order to return the necklace to its rightful owner. Michelle Capelli liked to encourage her son to socially interact with other teenagers of his own age, so she was all for her son going on this camping trip with Killen. She had an instinctive gut feeling that her son and Killen would become the very best of friends in due course. They appeared to have so much in common with each other. To all intents and purposes, Maxwell did have many male friends. But Michelle Capelli always wanted her son to have that special friend that would be more like a brother to him. She had wanted to give Maxwell a sibling, a male sibling at that, but it was not to be, as she had unfortunately had a radical hysterectomy shortly after Maxwell was born. So the Capelli's desire to have more children was ruthlessly nipped in the bud. She had always felt extremely guilty about raising up Maxwell to be an only child. She eagerly prepared a delicious selection of perishable and non-perishable foods for Maxwell to take on his camping trip. She assured him that she'd be perfectly able to manage the cake stand at the farmer's market by herself, without his supervision, although of course he'd be sorely missed. "I'm going to be absolutely fine. Don't you dare worry about me, Maxwell," she assured her son. "You go out into the great outdoors with Killen and have lots of fun. He seems like a very nice young man to me. And while I very much like most of your friends, Killen is very special. There's something about him that makes him feel a little like family, as odd as that may sound." "It's funny you should say that, Mum," Maxwell had chuckled. "In the short time I've known Killen, he feels more like a brother than a friend to me, and that's never happened to me before. I feel incredibly comfortable in his company, almost as if I've known him all my life." "That's exactly what I'm saying to you," said Michelle Capelli, looking extremely pleased. "That's why you need to nurture this friendship," she had said encouragingly. In truth, Maxwell was very excited about this camping trip to the Misty Hills camping ground. He had never quite met anyone like Killen before, and for some reason they seemed to click, almost as if the fresh blooms of a new friendship had been sown, and would likely produce a bountiful harvest. Maxwell was popular at school. He had so many friends, but the relationship he had with Killen was extremely different. It felt more brotherly, and friendships like this were rare to come by. Killen picked Maxwell up in the early hours of the morning from his home, an hour after Michelle Capelli had packed up her van and left for the farmer's market. Killen was driving an old beat-up white SUV that his father had given to him for a late birthday present. And although the battered SUV had seen better days, it was robust, hard-wearing, and rather ungainly, an oversized car that looked like it could stand up to a lot of wear and tear, which was exactly why Killen liked it so much. The 3-hour journey to the Misty Hills camping ground in the Pacific Northwest was pleasantly enjoyable. Time seemed to melt away, like butter drizzling down a corn cob. The two young men found they had a lot to talk about, and there was much laughter during that journey. Finally, Killen left the highway behind them. They travelled down some rugged country roads, surrounded by tall, lofty trees on both sides. It almost seemed as if they'd entered another kind of world that existed when people were riding around in horse-drawn carriages. The web of dirt roads went on for a long while, until Killen's GPS suddenly announced, "On your next turn to the left, you have reached your destination." Killen pulled up this dirt road, and his SUV drove up to an old rusty gate, which was in well need of a paint job. But there was a very smart sign above the gate that read Misty Hills Camping Ground, and on a little pillar to the side of his SUV was a freestanding intercom system. "We're here, finally," said Killen, pulling out a piece of paper from what appeared to be a brand-new wallet. He pulled down his driver's side window and keyed in the access code on the intercom system. The gate steadily opened, and they drove down the long road surrounded by wilderness, along with large clusters of trees. The blue sky seemed to stretch out before them like an eternity, while the distant signatures of the mountains towered up into the heavens with a prepossessing dignity, while their curvaceous shapes appeared to be cloaked by a fine covering of foggy mist. Killen had told Maxwell that the campground was owned by a very eccentric man called Mr. Gordon Raffel. It was only accessible to be used by a select clientele that paid an annual membership fee every year for the privilege of camping there. The private campground was well equipped with showers and warm water, along with a kitchen facility, which indulged all campers with the privilege of using freezers and fridges where you could store your perishable goods. Killen drove down the long, bumpy dirt road, strewn with a plethora of loose pebbles that beat against the undercarriage of his SUV, so very hard that it almost sounded as if it was being pelted by hail. Finally, he parked his SUV on the undulating bank of the most beautiful silvery lake that stretched out before them under the morning sun like an all-encompassing yawn. Trees of many shapes and sizes, some slightly lopsided, others curved, gathered around the water's edge eagerly, with a prideful serenity, draping their long garlands of green finery over the water's reflectant surface. A wild duck with dozens of her baby ducklings was skimming across the water. She was hanging around the reed bank, and you could hear the shrill calls of waterbirds everywhere. It was magnificently beautiful. That was when Maxwell took in the glorious view, and he felt as if he'd died and gone to heaven, because this place was as close to perfect as you could get. He couldn't blame the owner of this camping ground, keeping it private, for if he owned a place such as this, he would likely do exactly the same. You didn't want just anyone camping here, but people who respected the natural fauna and flora of a place. "This place is dreamy," he admitted to Killen. "When you talked about the Misty Hills campground, I hadn't envisaged a place like this. The bird life in the trees is phenomenal, and the lake looks as if it's well stocked with fish. I imagine a lot of people must come fishing here." "They sure do in peak season," said Killen with a grin. My family are very quiet people. We enjoy our outdoor pursuits, so it makes sense to pay the membership fee for this place. The Misty Hills campground is one of our best-kept secrets. Few people know about the place. We like it that way. And the owner does too. My parents aren't exactly rich or wealthy, but they value their privacy, so a place like this appears to tick all the boxes for us. I mean, it doesn't look like anyone is camping here this weekend, apart from you and me, which means we can have this entire camping ground to ourselves. And it doesn't get better than that. You're kidding. If we have this place to ourselves, we really will be in heaven, said Max, looking pleased. I'm so glad you invited me here, Killen. Well, our paths paradoxically crossed, did they not? Said Maxwell, in what I can say was a rather unorthodox way. We both bonded over a strange necklace, and we both received messages in our dreams from a male Bigfoot to return his necklace to him, which is why I've arranged for us to come here, and now here we are. Maybe we were meant to meet in this rather unusual way. Stranger things have happened. So you believe in serendipity, do you? Asked Maxwell. Absolutely I do, said Killen. Some things are meant to be. They're written in the stars. I don't believe there are any accidents. I also think my mother agrees with me on this. She's a staunch believer in fate, you see. I have 3 sisters and no brothers. My mother stopped trying to have another son after she kept giving birth to girls. She was hoping to have 2 boys and 2 girls, but it never happened. Growing up, I always felt I missed out on not having a brother. But since I've met you, Maxwell, I feel almost as if a hole has been filled. I've never felt this way before. I've never felt this comfortable with any of my friends. And believe me, I've got lots of them. I genuinely feel as if you are like a brother to me, Maxwell, as weird as that may sound. It's funny you should say that, because I feel exactly the same way, said Maxwell, delighted to hear that Killen also felt that there was a brotherly bond between the two of them. When my mother reached her limit of having children, Killen continued, she prayed hard for me to have a brother figure come into my life, and that hasn't happened until now. It's like her prayers were answered in a bizarre way, when a necklace came into our lives. So yes, that is serendipitous, in any way you look at it. You're right in what you say, because let's not kid. If I hadn't bartered you for that necklace, we would not have been involved in each other's lives. I remember thinking when I met you that you would be the kind of person that I'd like to know in another lifetime, and now here we are, probably because it's meant to be. So yes, it is serendipitous. By the way, my mother also wanted more kids, but couldn't have any, and she felt guilty about this because I never had a brother. She was hoping that I would one day make a good friend that I could connect with like a brother, but that never happened until you came along, Killen. When she met you the other day at the farmer's market and saw us interacting with each other, she said she could swear we looked like brothers. That pleased her exponentially. That was why she encouraged me to come on this trip with you. Well, I'm very pleased you're here, said Killen. I tell you what we'll do. Once we've pitched our tent, I'll take you into the woodgrove myself. I'll show you the area where I believe I found the necklace. I won't be able to pinpoint the exact spot where I found the necklace. As you well know, one area of the woodgrove looks much like another. We'll just go down the same trail that I did with Robin that day, and we'll leave the necklace hanging on a tree branch there, close to the area I believe where it was found. Hopefully the male Bigfoot will recover his missing necklace. I guess he must have dropped it. Unfortunately, I picked it up and kept it as my own. Something I now know I should never have done. But then again, if I hadn't done that, I would never have met you, and our friendship would never have been formed. Regretfully, I didn't listen to my instincts telling me to leave the necklace well alone. Unfortunately, my friend Robin, who as you know was on the camping trip with me, encouraged me to keep the necklace. But as you well know, the moment I started wearing it, I was haunted by those bizarre dreams. It was after those dreams and learning that you were having them too, I came to the profound realization that the Bigfoot must be real, as my dream was so lucid. And when I saw you at the farmer's market and you claimed to be having exactly the same dream that I was having, after you acquired the necklace from me, I knew these weren't just ordinary dreams. This was a clear message that we needed to return the necklace from whence it was found, and that's why we're here. I mean, think about it. This male Bigfoot had the power and paradoxical ability to access the two of us in our dreams. I mean, how is that even possible? He was able to tune in to the person who was wearing his particular necklace. It boggles the mind that he had the ability to do that. I haven't told anyone in my family about my dreams after I first acquired the necklace. To tell you the truth, I didn't think anyone would believe my story. So when you wanted to barter the necklace from me, I thought, why not give it to you in exchange for the cakes? At least it might put an end to the Bigfoot appearing to me in my dreams, asking for his necklace back. I know where you're coming from with all that, Maxwell agreed. Like you, I haven't told my mother the real reason for our camping trip, because it sounds far too far-fetched. I unequivocally know that the male Bigfoot reached us both through our dreams, and I cannot imagine for the life of me how he was able to do that. Me neither, admitted Killen, but I have heard that human beings used to be telepathic, but not anymore. But there are people out there who are able to tune into places by remote viewing, I'm told. So maybe the Bigfoot is able to tune in to the whereabouts of his necklace, and then able to communicate with the both of us. The good news is I'm not remotely fearful of the Bigfoot that I encountered in my dreams. In my humble opinion, they were passive and gentle, benevolent beings. The male Bigfoot that asked for his necklace back, he was emotionally intelligent. He wasn't angry or aggressive about his demands. He was polite and matter-of-fact about it, rather like when you lend a book to a good friend who forgets to give it back to you. So you call them up and say, "Hi, bro, can I please have my book back?" I certainly agree with you on that, said Maxwell. The dreams I experienced were lucid and haunting, but not in a bad, negative way, if you know what I mean. I never once felt that the Bigfoots in my dream imposed a threat to me. They were extremely intimidating, of course, based on their sheer size and stature. But the male Bigfoot was merely asking for what was rightfully his back, and I felt obligated to return this necklace to him. That is why we came here today, said Killen. We are here to return to the Bigfoot the necklace which I should never have taken in the first place, as it was not mine to take, and I guess I knew it was intrinsically wrong. It was almost like the necklace drew me in. It was magnetizing and bewitching. It had the same kind of alluring hold on me that the ring golem was fixated on in The Lord of the Rings. I'm not kidding. When I saw the necklace with its unusual stone and the eagle's feather attached to it, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And when I started wearing the necklace, everyone wanted to buy it from me. People got fixated on it for reasons I can't explain. I guess I thought, since I found it in the wilderness myself, I had the right to keep it. But how wrong was I about that? Don't blame yourself for thinking like that, said Maxwell. In the same situation, I'd likely have done the same. I mean, the necklace is extremely cool. When I saw you wearing the necklace at the farmer's market, I wanted it like I've never wanted anything before. And since I've been wearing it around town, I've had random strangers coming up to me, asking me if they could buy the pendant from me. Some have offered me big money. I haven't told you this, but I'll tell you one thing. I've got a neighbour, a man called Mr. Falconer, who lives in our neighbourhood. Now, he's been seriously annoying, and when I say seriously annoying, I'm not exaggerating. He's been phoning me up every single day, offering me $10,000 for the stone. And when I say no, I'm not selling the necklace, he badgers me to change my mind. He's been laying on the pressure for me to sell the necklace to him, and doesn't appear to be able to take no for an answer. At this curious revelation, Killen looked absolutely astounded. Is this neighbour of yours completely insane? $10,000 for the necklace? He must be mad. Well, it turns out, said Maxwell with a chuckle, that Mr. Falconer is married to a formidable woman. Her name is Ivor. I gather Mr. Falconer had withdrawn the $10,000 from his savings account. Well, their savings account, so to speak. He was planning to put the money under my nose, to persuade me to give up my necklace to him. That's how badly he wanted it. I think he was of the belief that if he presented me with the money, its temptation would be so overwhelming, I'd be unable to refuse him. He was even making murmurings of giving me one of his extra lawnmowers that he has in the shed, as an added incentive to get me to agree to his offer. Anyway, Ivor knew within seconds that her husband had sneakily drawn out the money from their savings account. As you can imagine, she challenged him about where the money had gone. He told her he'd removed the money because he wanted to buy a one-of-a-kind gemstone from me. Apparently she blew a gasket. She screamed at him, calling him an old fool who had the brains of a scarecrow, and even a scarecrow would probably have more sense than him. She snatched the money away from Mr. Falconer, put it back in their savings account, and marched over to our house. She waved a warning finger at me. She told me that under no circumstances was I ever to agree to sell the necklace to her husband. I assured her that that would never happen, as I had no intention of selling the necklace to her husband. She was appreciative of that. She's a tiny woman, about 4'5", and very slender, but you forget that when you meet her, because she can be a tyrant, let me tell you. She told me her husband was the absolute end, wanting to pay excruciatingly high prices for things of little value. That man has about as much sense as a porcupine, and if the truth be told, a porcupine likely has more common sense in one of its spikes than my husband has in his pinky finger. That's hilarious, said Killen with a chuckle. And all over a necklace. I mean, it's almost seductive, wouldn't you say? I mean, this neighbour of yours deliberately sneaking the money out of his bank account, hoping his wife wouldn't notice, and even offering you one of his lawnmowers as a bribe just for the necklace. Luckily, his wife is shrewd and on the ball. It sounds to me as if she watches him like a hawk. She doesn't trust him an inch. You almost have to feel sorry for this neighbour of yours. He's trying to get away with doing things behind his wife's back, and failing abysmally, for she catches him with his hands in the cookie jar every time. I know what you mean, laughed Maxwell. You're right about the necklace. It does seem to beguile so many people. To tell you the truth, I'll be quite relieved to return the necklace to the Bigfoot, so I won't be harassed any more by Mr. Falconer. I'll tell him I went out camping with a friend on a long hike and accidentally dropped the necklace. And I'm not exactly lying, am I? I'm being a little economical with the truth. But at least Mr. Falconer will be able to stop fantasizing about the necklace all the time. I share the same opinion with you, said Killen. It'll be a load off my mind when we finally return the necklace to whom it belongs. Once Killen and Maxwell had pitched their tent around the lake, Killen drove his SUV to a red brick building, where they placed their perishable foods in the refrigerator unit there, and then they drove back to their camping spot, and industriously began to collect some firewood for later on in the afternoon, when they prepared a fire pit. Once they had gathered enough wood, they decided now was the time to return the necklace. Maxwell glanced down at the bewitching necklace around his neck, and he did feel somewhat sad and reflective about parting with it. But he knew he'd also feel a profound sense of relief letting it go, as the dreams at night and the constant attention the necklace had provoked among so many people, especially Mr. Falconer, was more than he could take. He did wonder why the necklace appeared to have such magnetizing powers, that when people looked at it, so many of them almost became like magpies, who'd simply love to snatch the necklace away from him, if given the chance. Let's do this, said Killen. Get it over and done with, shall we? Are you ready? Ready as I'll ever be, said Maxwell. I know how you feel, said Killen sympathetically. But remember, when you took the necklace from me, I felt a great burden of responsibility had been lifted off my shoulders. I felt lighter, and the dreams went away. I'm sure you'll feel much the same once you're relieved of the necklace. I hope you're right, said Maxwell. My only concern is, will the Bigfoot know where to find his necklace, or will he continue to bother me in my dreams? Of course he'll be able to find the necklace, said Killen. I got the distinct impression from my own dream they wanted me to leave the necklace in the woodgrove from where I found it. If they could tune into the fact that we had the necklace, they can definitely find its whereabouts in the woodgrove. Of that I am most sure. I guess you're right about that, Maxwell agreed. But of course I'm right, said Killen. Come on, let's get this over and done with. It'll be a load off our minds. Before long, the two young teenagers walked down the trail together. It was a magnificently beautiful afternoon. The sun shone brightly through the trees. But as they continued along their merry way, the scenery became hauntingly familiar for Maxwell, almost like a déjà vu experience, you could say, as if he'd been into this wood grove before. He recognized the woody notes, along with the citrusy fragrance of one of the flowering creepers that lay in tangled clusters along the path. The bird song in the air was also familiar, along with the rustling sounds of the leaves shaken by a soft breeze. "I've been here before," he told Killen. "I know I have. I know that sounds completely crazy, but I promise you, I'm sure I've been here." "But of course we've both been here before, Maxwell. Don't you remember? I've been here physically before, that's true enough. But I've also been here in my dreams, and so have you, because we both experienced the same dream, if you remember. Somehow, during our sleep state, we were both teleported here. Remember, you told me you woke up with your feet very, very badly cut up, with dirt all over them and bloodstains. That happened to me as well. I assure you my mother gave me hell for going to bed with filthy feet." "But how could this possibly happen?" asked Maxwell. "It makes absolutely no sense at all." "I'll tell you a big secret, Maxwell. I have found in life that a lot of things make no sense at all. Don't overthink things, Maxwell. It'll drive you completely mad. Let's just say peculiar, very bizarre and paradoxical things do happen to people. I've heard of people finding themselves caught up in another time, and how this happened God only knows. But when they return to their original time, they try to find the place they encountered, and it no longer exists. But when they do their research, they found it existed in the 1800s or some other time period. Things like that do happen, without any logical explanation at all. I've learnt to accept it. I've resigned myself to the fact that the world is indeed a very mysterious place. And you need to accept that too. The world is like an onion with many layers, and many of those layers represent different dimensions and parallel universes, and sometimes people slip into them. That's what my mother also believes." "Ah, here we are," said Killen suddenly, as they came up to two forks in the road. One was called Beaver's Bump Trail, and the other was called the Goblin's Triangle. What was it about the Goblin's Triangle that Maxwell remembered? He'd seen the name in his dream before. Of course he had. It was extremely familiar to him. Killen stood still for a moment, and then said, "I found the necklace down the Goblin's Triangle trail. This is the way we need to go." "Well, then, let's proceed," said Maxwell. "Why do you look so hesitant, Killen?" "Well, I haven't come completely clean with you," Killen admitted. "What do you mean, you haven't come completely clean with me?" asked Maxwell. "About what exactly?" "Well, about the Goblin's Triangle trail, I mean." "Well, what's wrong with the trail? Is there a lot of uphill walking or something? I assure you, Killen, I'm not that unfit." "That's not what I was talking about. The trail isn't the problem in terms of its physical demands. But it is called the Goblin's Triangle because it is a triangular-shaped trail, and also because some rather peculiar things can happen here." "Such as what?" asked Maxwell. "Why do I not feel good about this, Killen? Why are you being so secretive? What is it that you're not telling me?" "I'm not being secretive, nor am I deliberately hiding anything from you. It's just when me and my friend Robin stumbled across this trail quite by accident, we were eager to take it. The name the Goblin's Triangle appealed to us greatly. It had a mysticism about it, you could say. Well, when me and Robin came down this trail, nothing untoward happened to us, apart from, of course, stumbling across the necklace. When we got back to camp and I told my mother about the Goblin's Triangle trail that we'd been on, she quite literally lost it with me. Why would she do that? Why wouldn't she want you to take the trail? Well, she told me she'd warned me hundreds of times never to take the Goblin's Triangle trail. But I have no memory of her telling me this. Well, maybe you forgot about it, said Maxwell. No big deal. I wouldn't forget something like that, said Killen. If my mother wanted me to ignore a Pacific Trail, I would have heeded her advice. Well, what is wrong with the Goblin's Triangle Trail anyway? Asked Maxwell. What was your mother fussing about? Well, she told me that the owner of Misty Hills campground called the trail the Goblin's Triangle, as people lose their way here. Although I'm not sure exactly why, because people don't go missing like they do in the Bermuda Triangle, so to speak. Yet people taking this trail do appear to become disorientated and extremely confused. Some claim to go into a trance and have no memory of how they return back to their camps. Others claim they've heard whispering sounds all over the woods and have felt completely spooked, as if they sensed that they were being watched and followed by someone. That's why the owner chose to call the trail the Goblin's Triangle, because goblins by nature are tricksters, and so many people that have taken this trail feel as if someone is playing with their mind. And you thought to tell me this now, said Maxwell, looking quite startled. Why would you keep this from me, Killen? Well, if you want to know the truth, I didn't want to get you spooked going down this trail. Well, it's too late for that, Killen, said Maxwell, looking far from impressed. I'm now feeling extremely reluctant about doing this. Nothing is going to happen to us going down the Goblin's Triangle Trail, Killen assured Maxwell. Remember, it's where I found the necklace, so we have to go this way whether we like it or not, in order to return it, don't we? But I promise you, if it makes you feel any better, I don't believe any funny business will happen to you and me. It didn't happen to me and my friend Robin when we went on the trail. As I was saying, the only bizarre thing that happened was us finding the necklace. Well, we have to go down this trail anyway, said Maxwell. But I wish to God you'd kept all the spooky stuff to yourself, because now I'm feeling ever so slightly on edge. You're probably right, Maxwell. I shouldn't have mentioned the stories and rumours about this trail. They're probably not true anyway. As the two teenagers navigated their way down the Goblin's Triangle, Maxwell soon physically relaxed. For despite what Killen had told him about the Goblin's Triangle, he decided it was probably folklore, and there was nothing to these rumours of people becoming disorientated and confused, or drifting into a trance-like state. The idea seemed nonsensical. The woodgrove felt benign, very benevolent. The bird-song in the trees was reassuring, and the warm sun trickling through the branches and caressing his face made him feel all was well with the world. Of course, there was nothing to worry about. As he was thinking this, the whispering began, and Maxwell could feel his chest tightening and the back of his throat becoming thick with nausea. "Hear that?" he whispered to Killen. "I hear whispering, and I'm certain we're being watched. It's happening to us, Killen. Just what you told me. It's happening. I can't believe it. I feel spooked." "Ignore it. Ignore the whispering," said Killen. "Remember, we have to focus on the job at hand. You see the rock over there, near the tall tree? I'm pretty certain that that was the place where I found the necklace. Of course, I can't be 100% sure. Well, let's get this over and done with," said Maxwell with an urgency in his voice that suggested he really was quite spooked. Killen tried to act nonchalant about it all, but underneath his calm veneer, his heart was thumping nervously in his chest, and he kept looking anxiously behind his shoulders. He was sure someone was there. Someone was following them. Someone was watching them. He couldn't help envisaging some mischievous goblins playing tricks on him and laughing at his angst, delighting in causing him so much stress. "I can't let Maxwell see how unnerved I am," he told himself. Despite the fact that the taunting whispers that seemed to come from all over the grove were making him feel extremely flustered, it was clear his mother was absolutely right. The Goblin's Triangle was not a trail for the faint of heart, for it was appropriately named given the level of disquiet he was now feeling. When they reached the rock, Killen inwardly sighed with relief. "We should put the necklace somewhere where it can be physically seen," he told Maxwell. "How about putting it on this overhanging branch? I'm sure the Bigfoots won't miss it there." Maxwell was more than eager to take the necklace off his neck and to put it on the branch. And as he was doing this, Killen said, "Look at that! What on earth is that? On one side of the trail." That was when they saw a burgeoning white mist beginning to spread across the grove, like a thick vaporous white fog. "What the hell?" said Maxwell. "What is going on?" It was in the mist they saw 3 dark shadowy forms moving towards them. The mist began to fade away, like the steam from a kettle, and standing before them were 3 powerful male Bigfoot, but the Bigfoot in the middle was the most impressive, because he was gargantuan. The sheer size of him made Maxwell want to faint in terror. It was in that moment a peace came over him, as a voice in his head said, "You have nothing to fear. We are guardians of the sweet earth, and we are here to save and to heal, not to hurt and destroy." Maxwell noticed the 2 Bigfoots on each side of the massive, towering Bigfoot were wearing pendants similar to the one he had been given by Killen. Only the stones on these necklaces were uniquely different and very individual. He'd never seen stones like that before. "You have something of mine, I believe," said the large male Bigfoot in the middle, who stepped forward. This time he verbally spoke in a language that Killen and Maxwell had never heard before, and yet they understood his every word, almost as if his native tongue was familiar to them. Maxwell held out the necklace in his hand, with trembling fingers, placing it in the Bigfoot's palm, and as he did so, he was struck by the huge size of the Bigfoot's hands and his fingers. For a second, the Bigfoot's dark treacle eyes looked directly into his, and they were smiling at him, and Maxwell had never experienced such a warm, fuzzy feeling like this before, as he felt as if this large creature genuinely cared for him. On retrieving his necklace, the Bigfoot examined the stone, almost as if to reassure himself it was still intact. "Thank you, young man, for bringing this necklace back to me. The stone is very, very precious to me. It has been in my family line for generations, and there is no other like it in the entire world. It is completely unique. But because you have done this good favor for me, I have something to give you in return." And at that he waved a hand, indicating to the Bigfoot on the left-hand side to step forward. The Bigfoot was holding 2 necklaces in his hands, and he placed one in Killen's hands and the other in Maxwell's hand. "It is our way of thanking you for doing the right thing by us and returning the necklace, to me, of course." For a moment, Killen and Maxwell and the 3 Bigfoots stared at each other, as if words were no longer needed to be exchanged between them, almost as if both parties recognized that this was a special, very unorthodox moment in time that they did not want to forget. Maxwell knew that this paradoxical experience would never ever happen to him again. He was sure of it. In seconds he greedily soaked in all the details of the Bigfoots, admiring how massively large and incredibly powerful they were, like warrior angels dressed in long, straggly black hair, with muscles that rippled from beneath their flesh, with definition, strength, and tone. Their faces were noble and endearing, where strength, power, and compassion were written in every furrow on their brow, almost as if they could divide and conquer, but love, unite, and embrace at the very same time. "We must leave now," said the male Bigfoot, who slipped the necklace around his neck. "We bid you farewell, and thank you for bringing back my treasured stone." Then as he said this, the mist reappeared, and the 3 figures disappeared into it, until they were all but gone. "Did that just happen?" asked Maxwell, staring at Killen with wide eyes. "It did," said Killen. "That massive male Bigfoot, the one in the middle. I saw him very clearly in my dreams. But in real life, let me tell you, the sheer size of him made me want to faint. But he knew exactly what I was thinking, because the moment I started experiencing fear, his voice came straight into my head, telling me I had nothing to fear, and I was immediately put at ease. These Bigfoots have supreme powers, powers we cannot even comprehend or understand. And that mist they walk through, it made me wonder if they came through an open portal of some kind." "I was thinking exactly the same thing," Maxwell admitted. Killen and Maxwell were absolutely delighted to examine the necklaces that had been given to them by the male Bigfoot. They both had their own unique stone, along with an eagle's feather, attached to a leather thong, and these days they still wear these necklaces. This was a camping trip that would become one of many for Killen and Maxwell, although when they did come to the Misty Hills campground together, they always did their level best to avoid taking the Goblin's Triangle Trail, which they believe contains a portal whereby things can come in and out of our reality, which may explain why people have had rather outlandish experiences on that trail. To date, Killen and Maxwell have become like brothers, but they have not encountered the 3 Bigfoots again. So there you are. That's my story.
Well, hello there. I hope you enjoyed the Omnibus edition. We've got many more coming our way for you to listen to. Sending you love wherever you are in the world, in North America, Canada, Kenya, wherever you may be. I send you lots and lots of love. Thank you for listening to my Omnibus, and I really do hope you enjoyed it, because that's the whole idea about it, is to give you some interesting stories to listen to. So until next time, goodbye and good night.